UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon, just gone 4 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk Drive until 7 o'clock tonight. Thank you to Ian Collins. Great show. Back tomorrow, off to my house, apparently. Right, listen, I'm going to start the show differently. Ryan is going to look at me like I've landed from Mars. I have got to the point in this country and this world where I think that we are getting more and more warped and there are less and less caring people. But I want to salute a complete stranger. I lost my wallet this morning at a supermarket down on the south coast and it was complete carnage. Driving licence, credit cards, getting ready to cancel everything. My daughter, bless her, who's at home, decided to drive to the supermarket because I had to get a train, and it had been handed in. And this is how the story went. She went up to the desk and she went, "Have you had any wallets handed in?" And they went, "Well, not ladies' ones, men's one." And she went, "It is a man's one." And they went, "Yeah, but it's fake, this one." And they went, "What do you mean it's fake?" She said, "Well, somebody handed in from the car parks. This is Jeremy Carl's wallet." And she went, "It is, it's my dad." And they went, "Can you prove that?" And she went, "Well, I haven't got any ID." And they went, "Well, we can't give it to you." So she rang me. This is genuinely true. And the woman went, "You're not really, are you?" And I went, "Yeah, I am." And she went, "How can you prove it?" And the only thing I could do was go, "Get off my stage." And she went, "There's your wallet." So I would like to say that in this world full of complete idiots, there is a very, very nice person good enough to walk a wallet back into a supermarket. Whoever you are, well, you're probably not listening, but anyway, thank you very much indeed. 3 minutes past 4. Loads and loads and loads to talk about. The Masters, we could talk about it till the cows came home. But there we go. Let's talk about two-tier policing. Certainly Ian said this is what is resonating with so many people. A bit of a Talk exclusive. Police, quite rightly, slammed. I mean, the Greater Manchester Police, I mean, honest to God, tick box BAME recruitment. This is bizarre. One of Britain's largest forces has been criticised for a tick box diversity drive that encouraged people with no GCSEs and little or no English to apply for the force. A whistleblower told how the force's positive action team were tasked with targeting ethnic minority groups, often outside supermarkets. Do ethnic minority groups hang out outside supermarkets? I've got no idea. And collecting names, regardless of whether the individuals were remotely qualified. More tick boxing. So forget the quality of the police work. Forget the fact that people are being burgled and people who run shops, people are shoplifting ridiculously large amounts. We're going to make sure we make everybody feel very happy in Greater Manchester by this diversity drive. I would love to have an argument, right, with somebody who goes, "Oh, that's really unfair. You're being..." It shouldn't be about the best person for the job. Here's another one. I remember Kev talking about the West Yorkshire Police doing a similar thing next week. They put a block on hiring candidates. They've given their officers training about the slave trade as part of efforts to become an anti-racist organisation. So we've got Greater Manchester Police you can join if you can't speak English, and West Yorkshire Police, you need to know all about slavery and what happened. Because I thought, I must be totally wrong, because I thought Great Britain was the people that sort of organised the end of slavery. I mean, it could be wrong. Let's blame us for everything. So that's impressive, isn't it? I mean, what a great start that is. Two-tier policing. And then this is another one. No wonder Blex is primed and ready to go. Ministers must stop appeasing jailed terrorists after a brutal attack left 3 prison officers metres from death, a top Tory said. Great. Prison officials need to regain control from Islamist extremists allowed to rule the roost behind bars. Conservative Justice spokesman Rob Jenrick added questions mounted over why the Manchester Arena bomb plotter had access to a self-cooked kitchen, hot cooking oil and materials to make makeshift weapons. I don't know about you lot, but I go back to the same thing almost every week. We've got police who don't seem to want to arrest the perpetrators of crime. We seem to do bugger all, increasingly bugger all, for any sort of victim. Now we're appeasing terrorists in jail. I've loads to talk about, but I feel like I have to go straight to him because he's primed and ready to go. Also, something I said very quickly before we go to Pete, actually. I've been saying this for quite a few weeks and months on this about those awful Southport riots, that one of the reasons, and I'm not condoning anything that happened, I don't like being jailed for 31 months for hurty words, if you Lucy Connolly, but I will say this. Prosecutors hampered the police response to the Southport riots by allowing fake news to spread. I've been saying it all along. The government knew who this guy was. It went across social media. Oh, it's an illegal migrant. Everybody got excited and wound up, and what happened happened. Surely if the government had released that information information sooner, which again today it proves they should have done, then we wouldn't have been in that position, but not a word from them. So, as ever, you want to be part of the debate? 7 minutes past 4 on screen, it will tell you can phone us. 0344 499 1000. A very delighted Jodie, who's just been paid far more than she should have been paid, and she's celebrating Everton's wonderful win at the weekend. Then so 0344 499 1000. Then we quieten down a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, to Ryan, top producer, who came down to where I live the weekend to stalk me on a bus, but that's another story. You can send him a WhatsApp, 0344 499 1000. Start with what for the crap. That's it, 0344 499 1000. What for the crap. And 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We'll bring him down. He's a QPR fan. He's depressed as well. Peter Blexley, hello. Welcome to Monday afternoon, sir. Look at the face on that.
We've got a very credible draw on Saturday, so I'm quite pleased. And I'm wearing green in honour of Rory this afternoon.
Did you watch the Masters?
I had to be up at 3:15 this morning, so I didn't see the incredible climax, unfortunately.
Unbelievable. Everybody knows I'm a golfer. I know I said Sergio would do well. I said Reed would do well as well. But my God. That was like a roller coaster of emotion. More in TalkSport. Our sport with TalkSport later on. Pete, you and I have talked about what we consider to be the madness of policing in this country. And today, two-tier policing, there's this committee of MPs who sort of came out and said, oh, there isn't two-tier policing. I don't know what planet these people live on. Let's start with the Talk exclusive. One of Britain's largest police forces, the Greater Manchester Police, encouraged people with no GCSEs. I'm not bothered about that, by the way. I'm going to put my neck on the line. I'm not bothered about that. And little or no English to apply for the force. Their positive action team tasked with targeting ethnic minorities to box tick BAME recruitment. Your thoughts, my friend? Because that's ridiculous, isn't it? Again.
Right, now I'm not fussed about police officers having a whole raft of qualifications, but they must be able to read and write. And I understand in 2025, if by way of a recruitment drive, they need to teach people how to read and write, which I would still find a bit astonishing, then so be it. But police officers write statements, read them out in court, write crime reports and the such like. Anyway, there's so much lunacy about policing, which you've alluded to this afternoon. Particularly, one thing that stood out for me is police officers being taught about slavery. Now, I think police officers should be taught about the criminal offences of modern slavery.
Yeah.
Not how William Wilberforce abolished it, and I expect they probably changed William Wilberforce's name to William Wilbur Service, because, of course, we don't have police forces anymore.
Nice. Do we not have police forces anymore? We don't have a police force?
No, there's services and constabularies. Metropolitan Police went from being a force to a service a long, long time ago under that king of police wokeness, Sir Ian Blair. Remember him? No, who does? So they changed the word from force because that would have been what? That would have implied that the police used force. That's what we're talking about. Is that right? Was it that crap? Indeed. And all these senior police officers of today and the previous generation of senior police actually turned policing into a social service, which is why they started doing so many things that, quite frankly, had nothing to do with policing. And they willingly did all of this because they saw themselves in their fluffy, liberal, new, reinvented way as being a social service, which is why crime is rampant, people are not getting arrested for crimes that they should do, and our streets are all a lot less safe than they used to be. Congratulations to those senior police officers.
And it's true. We said when we started talking 3 years ago on this show that you know, when I was a kid, your copper was on the, you know, you get taken home with you, grab your ear and take you back to your mum and a clip round the ear. And nowadays, it seems to be, that's a great word you use then, it's all about appeasement, it's all about box ticking, be it recruitment, be it, I mean, that's the West Yorkshire Police, as you said, giving its officers training about the slave trade as part of efforts to make it anti-racist. Presumably, a lot of these organisations, this woke madness, which still engulfs us on a weekly and daily basis, they have an agenda, but it means that they take their eye off doing what presumably they're employed to do in the first place, which, as you said, is, I mean, it's like Sadiq Khan. He's forever glorifying whatever his latest fad in London is, right? And this is the most rampant area for knife crime probably anywhere, and nothing gets done about it. So surely in London's case, more stop and search, stronger sentencing, more police on the streets, gathering intel so that the scumbags can be arrested. But no, I'll tell you what, let's just teach them hanging outside supermarkets. What the hell? What is wrong with people, Pete? Seriously.
Now, I think if police officers wanted to target supermarkets by way of a shoplifting purge, wouldn't that be a good idea? Instead of handing out flyers to people in a vain attempt to try and get them to join the police. I wish our high streets were actually subjected to a massive police operation, very similar to how they mobilised police for the riots. They mobilised
They managed that quite quickly, didn't they?
They did indeed. And, of course, for the Notting Hill Carnival in London, where the Met mobilised 7,000 police officers for that. Imagine nationwide if we had a week of positive action in regard to shoplifting, where, say, 5,000 or 6,000 police officers were mobilised and put out onto the streets to focus on shoplifters. What a brilliant piece of positive policing that could be. But I'll tell you why I think it won't happen, because the government will say to them, the courts can't handle the number of people that they would charge, and the prisons couldn't handle the number of people.
But they did. But they comfortably did when it came to those Southport riots. It was absolutely perfect and sorted. They were arrested on camera, tried on camera, and jailed on camera, all in 24 hours. When we were told repeatedly, no police on the streets, the courts are absolutely in a 3-year delay, and the jails by the end of the week people will be breaking out, which is rather release those goddamn prisoners with their Gucci shoes. If you look at the police, and then you look at the other story today is ministers must stop appeasing jailed terrorists. The Manchester terrorist was silent and grinning as he attacked 3 officers with makeshift cooking tray knives. And still we seem to spend our time in this country. We've got police not arresting anybody for fear of being racist or unfair, or they can't even call themselves a police force. That's going to wind me up all day. And now we seem to get to a point where we are appeasing, right? Appeasing people who commit heinous crimes, on top of which criminals are going untagged for months after they're released from prison in England and Wales amid chaos in the system used to track them. I mean, if you were not involved with this with the whole justice system, from committing a crime to being released, you'd look at it and you'd go, it's an absolute blank show, isn't it? It is.
And it is. Now, this matter of appeasing these revolting, mass murdering Islamic monsters that are in our jails and are recruiting more people into their perverted version of Islam on a daily basis, they've had to be separated because they're so dangerous. And yet, when His Majesty's Inspectorate of Prisons reported in only 2022 about these separation centres, they said that the men appreciated having their own cooking facilities. Men, they're multiple murderers. They want to wipe us off the face of the earth. Call them what they are: Islamic murderers, terrorists. And they shouldn't have cooking facilities. They shouldn't have implements and oil that they can boil. And I have huge sympathy for those prison officers. I really, really wish them well, because policing and prison officers deal with exactly the same type of people. It's just a wall that separates our work.
Actually, just spreading on from that, and I completely agree. There's also this MP, this bunch of MPs. I mean, I want to talk about Southport with you briefly, because you were great on this. I told you this bunch of MPs said there was no proof of 2-tier policing during those riots. I had this whole thing in my head and I kept saying it. Ryan and I talked about it for ages, that the government, certainly the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, would have known exactly who that man was that killed those 3 innocent people, right? But they didn't release that information. Prosecutors let fake news spread by delaying facts. Now, am I right or wrong in saying that that's why it caused all the furore on social media, everybody, because there was a big thing about immigration, oh my God, and that didn't help. So why weren't the government responsible in that case? So we've got a police force that are too scared to arrest anybody. We've got a justice system that's too scared to say, you're a dirty criminal, you better stay languishing in jail with the door locked. We want to appease them all and make them feel great. And we've got a government that allows, in effect, without wanting to sound conspiratorial, allows fake news to spread, if you believe this story today. Because, well, why would they allow it to spread? Because, Pete, surely if they'd been more factual at that point, there wouldn't have been that much tension on the streets, or as much.
Because the CPS and the government were scared of the Contempt of Court Act, and they wouldn't stand up to counter the tweet that had gone out. There was a tweet that went out early that morning full of false information, saying that this killer had arrived on a boat recently, was an Islamist, all that kind of stuff. And they allowed that tweet to circulate and circulate and circulate, and people believe that misinformation, which caused so much disquiet. Where was the leadership of the country? Where was the leadership of the CPS in somebody saying, this is urgent, get me on every radio station, get me on every television channel, I'm going to put it straight, this is fake, it's nonsense, don't believe it, don't go out onto the streets, we'll tell you the full truth as soon as we possibly can.
Couldn't agree more.
Better.
Before I let you go, I just want to ask you something. We've talked policing, we've talked about justice. Sorry, can I just... I really, Ryan, when you put this stuff here, I feel like... you do it deliberately, Ryan. I was feeling relaxed after the weekend. Members of a grooming gang, Peter, who preyed on teenage girls... Oh, Jesus. Got over £600,000 in legal aid, it's emerged. Legal aid! 600 grand, and you've abused a young girl.
Now, I am all for somebody who is accused by the state of doing something they hadn't done being represented. That is right. Under the legal aid system. That essentially is what it was set up for. Justice should not only be for people who can afford it. Of course it shouldn't. It should be for all. Now, this money won't have gone to those vile, repugnant, child-raping gangs, of course. It will have gone to their lawyers. But I think there needs to be a much stronger element of means testing of people who are accused of
Well, I'm going to say something I never thought I'd say on national radio. As well as means testing when people get legal aid, they should do moral testing as well. There's plenty of people, I'm not going into detail, but there's plenty of people who are, again, that's taking advantage of the system. These men, 8 years it was to bring them to justice, and they're getting 600 grand. Try telling that again to, like, normal, hard-working people who are struggling, not on the breadline, but are watching the pennies and the pounds and all of that. Oh, you can get 600 grand to represent you. I'm with you. It's important that people get a choice, but to that extent and to that degree leaves a bit of a bad taste, doesn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. And I think if you've enjoyed the luxuries of legal aid, in other words, free legal representation, you are then found guilty and are convicted as a child-raping monster, then you should have extra time tagged onto your sentence for abusing the legal aid system.
Couldn't agree more. So QPR going to survive in the Championship, sort of steady middle of the road. You're looking very cool in your Rory shirt. Katy Perry just went to space for 11 minutes. Are you bothered?
Not in the slightest.
And me. Peter Blackstein, thank you. 4:20. In fact, Ryan, it's got me thinking. It's got me thinking, Ryan. Creatively, see if you can pick my brains, Ryan. Katy Perry's gone to space. Pick my brains. Come on. Nearly, Ryan. Who would you send to space because you hate them and it wouldn't come back? And Jeremy Kale's fine. Who would you want? If you went to space, if you wanted to, who would you go with? Stupid question. Who would you send to space and hope they never made it back? WhatsApp's 0344 419 1000. Text 87222. Who would you send to space and why? Andrew's in Bristol. Andrew, good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Great show as usual. What I'd like to say is maybe you're repeating more or less what Peter just said. These people on this committee who said allegedly that there's no such thing as two-tier policing, are they deaf, dumb, blind, or all of the above?
Are we allowed to say any of that anymore? We're allowed to. Just check it with Ryan, because I wouldn't want to upset anybody who is deaf, dumb or blind, because they'll get into more trouble. Oh, never mind anyway. I don't understand. I mean, I'll tell you what I think when this for people tuning in. MPs, a group of MPs said there was no two-tier policing at all. They're all hard-right, fascist, horrible people. Let's put somebody in jail for 31. Can I make a point, as I made about Lucy Connolly and what she wrote about the Southport riots? I don't condone what she wrote, and I don't in any way condone anybody who went on the streets and was violent. But people have to understand, I think, the powers that be, that the way they reacted and they called everybody far right was just that played the role. They're not all far right at all. I remember taking at the time a call from a nurse who said, I disagree violently with this government over immigration and several other things, and I want to demonstrate, but I'm not far right. I've actually voted for the last 30 years in this country, and I have a right to a voice. I think that Starmer at that moment was trying to show his strength, but I think that it's unbelievable.
Well, I think anyone with half a brain cell can see that there's two-tier policing. The way that the Metropolitan Police in particular have policed various demonstrations, and they stopped one guy from marching side by side with the Palestinian thing. And because he was Christian, they arrested him.
I couldn't agree more. Space. Are you interested in space? I'm not myself. Katy Perry went to space. Are you bothered?
Am I bothered? No, not particularly.
If you could send anybody to space, maybe somebody you didn't like, apart from me, who would it be?
Well, it wouldn't be you. I would suggest perhaps Bill Gates.
Who?
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates going to space. Bizarre. Thank you, Andrew in Bristol. All right. 4:23. We're live across the UK. He said he would send Bill Gates to. Why would he send Bill Gates to space? I saw a picture, by the way, of you, Amy, online at the weekend. Your boyfriend looks just like you. He's got glasses, isn't he? Yes, I saw it. 0344 499 1000. Who would you send to space that you don't like at all? Don't even bother. We're coming back in 3. Thank you.
I have grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear evidence of a very, very serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome About 4:26, so the A-team are here. Ryan here is, Amy is smiling a lot. Joe got wind. Jode is here, and Janet is here as well. She's a very, very important person. She's going to be a big star. I sound like Donald Trump. She's going to be a big star. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Listen, it's all very exciting. There's lots going on in the world, but actually the most interesting and funny thing of all is that Katy Perry went to space for 11 minutes today. I don't know how much that cost her. And Oprah Winfrey was crying. I've probably eaten a donut or two too many. That's a joke, by the way. Don't be offended. Who would you send? Who would you send to space that you don't like? Obviously, you lot are all going to say politicians. Let's think outside the box, shall we? 87222. Start the message with your word talk. Hello to Terry. Send Starmer to space. After all, he's quite far out. Very good, Tell. Don't give up the day job. Graham Pack. Really? I would send Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves to space, but unfortunately you'd probably still be able to hear their bloody annoying voices down here on Earth. That's right. Jezza, years ago, everybody was scared to go to prison because the guards ruled if you were naughty, you get a good hiding. If people don't like this, then don't do a crime. Simples. I couldn't agree more. Michelle, good afternoon. Jez, it's not the fact that... this is about Southport. It's not the fact that people... the government stayed silent to let misinformation fester. The government actually put out misinformation at the time, if you remember, Jez. They said it was a Welsh choir boy, a Christian, not terror-related. They intentionally put out schoolboy images, intentionally told us he was on the BBC, Children in Need, and was a so-called choir boy when he was a kid. They had no issue releasing information which could have actually jeopardised an upcoming trial. Do you know what? It's absolutely right. So you could argue, could you not? Let's be perfectly honest, that the government during Southport behaved in an appalling way. And if they'd been more open and they'd been more honest, maybe what would have happened didn't happen or couldn't have happened. Hello to CS. CS. Imagine being named after a gas. I'll wait. Prison officers... You see, that was quite funny, Ames. Prison officers have a hard time. Couldn't agree more. As a prison officer for 12 years working with Category A dangerous prisoners, I left when we were told to call them customers, not prisoners. Oh, Jesus. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mass Murderer. You're a customer. What would you like for your breakfast? There can only be one person who needs to be shot into space with a one-way trip, and that's Ed Millipede. Can you imagine the pain he'll suffer thinking about the amount of energy needed for the launch? I love it. 87222, start your message with the word talk. We say a very good afternoon to a man who I know will have watched the Masters with a cigar and a glass of whiskey. Benedict Spence, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Did you watch the Masters?
I did.
Good boy.
Are you happy?
Mate, I know everybody did listen to Golf's mine and Henry's thing, but I think it will go down as one of the greatest sports. It was unbelievable. It was complete drama. A man that good couldn't control. It was just unbelievable, mate.
I thought that the stats very apt, given that we're talking about space today, that there have been more people who have walked on the moon than have achieved what Rory McIlroy have achieved. I think that that's quite a telling stat, don't you?
Mate, I couldn't agree more. It was fantastic. Before we get serious, Benedict, have you been? You look like you've got your shooting jacket on. Been out hunting this morning? Have you been out?
Been out tending to the grounds.
Tending to the grounds and playing with your flock. If you could send anybody to space, maybe you'd want to go. I don't. I think it's a waste of money. You'll disagree. But if you could send somebody who couldn't come back apart from Tulip Sadiq, who would it be?
I was going to say, actually, I would quite like to go. And the sheer volume of people who I dislike, it would probably be more cost-effective for me to just go so that I don't have to pay attention to the sort of the morass of politicians. The problem is it's probably going to be a footballer or something like that. For me, it'll be rather petty. I'd like to see the back of Pep Guardiola. I've had enough. But apart from that, you know...
Shocking. Benedict Spence would send Pep Guardiola to space. Who would you send? 87222. Start your message with the word talk. But we started the show with Blexley because yet more examples in this country of just madness amongst our police force. Somebody sent a text earlier saying when we were kids, we were scared of the police. If you thought the police were going to pick you up, tell you off, take you home, whatever, that was long arm of the law. The Greater Manchester Police today, in a talk exclusive, we've discovered that a whistleblower tells us that the Positive Action Team used to hang around outside supermarkets targeting ethnic minority communities. I didn't know they hung out, by the way, outside supermarkets. Because, again, a terrible thing that they're saying, those people couldn't speak English and couldn't part GCSE, so it would be box-ticking exercise if we got them in the police force. Then we've got the West Yorkshire Police, who did the same last week, but this week have taken it a stage further. They put a block on hiring white officers. Now they're training their officers about the slave trade as part of efforts to make their force not racist. I don't know about you, but knife crime's prevalent. Crime in itself is prevalent. We've got less policemen and women on the streets than ever before, and they're worried about this crap. What is going on with it? It's ridiculous.
Well, it's fiddling whilst Rome burns. That's literally it. It is the most pointless sort of activities to make themselves feel as though they're doing something good, because they physically will not react to actual criminality. And if you're not doing that, then you're not doing something good. So they need to find something else that they consider to be moral. What value there is in teaching South Yorkshire Police, was it, about the slave trade?
West Yorkshire, don't disrespect the South Yorkshire Police. West Yorkshire Police, yeah.
Oh, I'd send South Yorkshire police to space in a heartbeat. Yeah, that you see, this is how we get into a real problem: is which of our police forces will we also send to space? Probably all of them. Honestly, though, it's not really of any. I'm assuming we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade here.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, all 10,000 plus officers in West Yorkshire Police and staff at their headquarters are undertaking a 2-day cultural awareness training course focused on black culture and policing history with black communities. It's part of a race action black plan for the constabulary to create an anti-racist police service, can't say force because that's wrong, trusted by black people. That's what it says.
I find this just hugely demoralising, because we simply do not have all of this, by the way, comes downstream from police forces in the United States. And I will say that word because that is, they still use that word, police force in the United States, where there is, in fact, a history of systematic racism in parts of the South. But because that is then filtered through to all parts of the United States, and then in the UK, we have no original ideas of our own. We only take ideas that we've imported from the US. We've decided we need to have that as well. There was a degree of racial issues in certain cities in the UK in the 60s and the 70s, in the immediate aftermath of migration. Nobody disputes that, but actually that was a long time ago. We have moved on from that. And to take that example of West Yorkshire, I'm sorry, but the black community is not, in fact, the prevalent minority community in West Yorkshire. That is not a relevant thing. If this was something about, I don't know, the South Asian community, if this was about Pakistani migrants, at the very least you could say, well, it's relevant. But it's not relevant because that's not the minority that has the most issues, or, is the most prevalent there. As I say, it's literally about some busybody in HR who's gone, probably seen it on television or something like that. Oh, police brutality and certain ethnic minorities. They've got a lot of that in Alabama. Maybe we should talk about that here to show how progressive we are. It's a load of nonsense. It's not relevant. And the whole thing, I'm sorry about this, the whole thing about pushing to get ethnic minorities, people who are here very recently, into the police force, who does that benefit? Actually, who does that benefit? A police officer should be able to uphold the law. They should know what the law is. Their colour shouldn't matter. They should be able to run a 3-minute mile or whatever it is. They should be able to physically bench a certain amount so they can overpower people. I really don't care, what their ethnic background is. A police officer is the first line of the law of the land. That is the most important thing. And the fact that we have to go through this pointless tick box exercises to make politicians and civil servants and certain HR departments and police forces feel good, feel like they're actually doing something because they're not solving crime.
And so you've got that, and then you've got a bunch of MPs today saying there's no evidence of two-tier policing or the handling of the Southport riots, when blatantly, when he stood up and said they're all far right, and I said it already, didn't condone anything that went on the streets, but there are many, many frustrated people in this country who have every right to protest. You can protest if you want to stick up for Palestine, but apparently if you want to protest against... And I genuinely blame the government. I thought this report today was really interesting. They say that prosecutors let fake news spread. They let out certain things. He was a Christian, he was a choir boy. That text is absolutely right. Yeah. They could have nailed that straight away, the government. So the cynics will say, did you let that fake news spread? Did you allow all of that so you can make examples of people and score a few political points? Because if that's the case, that's disgusting.
It is. I mean, the way that Southport was handled was absolutely revolting. And you're right, actually, because Keir Starmer did something very clever to cover his own back. If you read the script of the speech that he read out, he does say that violence is violence. In about one line, he says anybody who does this is very bad. And that's one line in an entire speech in which, as you say, he goes to town on far-right violence. And bearing in mind that we'd already had a riot a couple of weeks before in a suburb of Leeds, which had nothing to do with the far-right, and to which the police did not come in heavy-handed. And given that on the same day as Southport, there was also a riot in Southend between various different criminal gangs that, again, didn't get picked up on because it was two rival gangs of youths chasing each other around with knives. That is the example of two-tier policing. And when you have a situation where the police are not forthcoming about information, and they allow these things to sort of fester in a vacuum. And this is the thing, it's not just about Southport, because these feelings have been brewing for a very long time.
Yeah.
The sense of injustice, the sense of it was not just about Southport. Southport was the thing that led to it exploding. But this had been a long time coming. And if you continue to gaslight people by saying, oh, no, 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 don't pay attention to this, that's not true, or we don't have enough information, you have to pay attention to this, and this is what's important. People are not going to be taken for fools indefinitely. And it is revolting the way actually lots of people committed appalling crimes, setting fire to buildings, that sort of thing, cannot be tolerated. But people getting imprisoned for tweets and things like that
Ludicrous.
in a vacuum of information, how is that not
So in your mind, there is two-tier policing. In your mind, as we've been saying all day, since the show started, some of what's going on in the police force is barking mad. What I brought you on specifically for today, I woke up this morning and I thought, oh, God, I don't understand about the British Steel thing. There's only one man who can put this in layperson's terms. British Steel, big story over the weekend. Parliament recalled on Saturday as the government tries to reverse Chinese sabotage of the Scunthorpe furnace. In the old days, 150,000 people worked in this business. It's a race to keep British Steel running with last-minute efforts to secure raw materials. Just now on Sky and other news channels, Angela Rayner said they'll be fine. Can you explain two things to me? Who sold British Steel to the Chinese? Was that Boris Johnson?
Yeah, that's the Tories.
Idiot. And secondly, that's why I've made that point. Why did we get it right down to the wire? The Labour government must have been aware of this. Why didn't they act sooner, or have I missed the point? And basically, what is the story?
The Labour government, I tell you what, actually, I think the Labour government is slightly fastidious about what is going to have to happen, which is nationalisation. It's going to have to be nationalised. They didn't want to go in, I think, all guns blazing, because they didn't want to appear to be too, sort of old-fashioned left-wing. We're going to nationalise everything, because they thought that that would cause political problems for them. But I agree with you. They were not brave enough to grab the nettle, so to speak, and recognise this is unsustainable. It's unacceptable for a country to not produce its own steel. And this is a really important thing, actually, because people talk about the benefits of recycled steel over virgin steel and electronic arc furnaces over regular blast furnaces. The point is, if you can't make your own steel from scratch, you are entirely reliant on other countries making it and selling it to you secondhand.
Why did Johnson sell it to the Chinese? Why did he do that?
Honestly, I think you have to go into a certain strand of free marketeerism which genuinely believes that these countries and companies that are attached to governments, and in the case of China, every major company is attached to the government. This belief that you can trade with them up until a point where neoliberalism and the free market and democracy will just spontaneously take over. I think a lot of people still exist in that headspace, in the sort of the post-Cold War world, where we thought Russia was magically going to become a democracy and China was magically going to become a democracy. There's an element of that. There is also an element of cowardice and laziness and the belief that this will one day simply be someone else's problem and that the worst case scenario will never happen. Genuinely, I think people like Boris Johnson existed in a world where they thought, war can't possibly happen, which was possibly why he sort of went in two-footed when the war did break out in Ukraine. But the sort of the nightmare scenario of a war between China and the United States, I genuinely think a lot of European politicians in particular, A, thought it's never going to happen, or B, if it does, it'll happen so far down the line that I won't be in office when that actually happens.
But just very briefly, what is it that the Chinese... What is this sabotage? Put it in layman's terms. What is the
I don't actually think that it's sabotage at all. I think that that is propaganda. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think that is a line that is being sold now by the British government to cover up the fact that they've left it to the last minute to actually go in and say the furnaces are going to be turned off. Why? Because Jingyi, the company, have said, and this is justified, it costs us £700,000 a day to run this thing. Why does it cost so much, Jeremy? Because electricity prices, coal prices, oil prices in the UK are the most expensive in the world because of our net zero policy. This is not the Chinese government trying to shut down our furnace for nefarious reasons. They're doing it because it's not profitable. And do you know what, actually? If it was a British company doing it, nobody would be saying it's sabotage. It's because it's a Chinese company. But that is what's happened.
Why did they pay all that money to then shut something down? Why didn't they do due diligence then and say it wasn't sustainable, or I missed the point? I think
what they wanted to do long term was what Tata Steel did in Port Talbot, which was that they wanted to strip the whole thing for parts. I don't think they wanted to shut it down in this way, because when they bought it, they didn't anticipate our energy prices doing that. Nobody saw that coming, even though they possibly should have done. But that's the point. Rather than admit net zero is what has led us to this position in Scunthorpe, the government is going to go, it's Chinese sabotage, even though up until now they haven't sabotaged it.
Love it. Listen, great to have you on. Good luck with the with the Fox and Hounds later in your hunting jacket. The excellent Ben at expense, 5 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Talk Drive. We've got loads coming up. 0344 499 1000. The text message question. It's not a question. There's nothing planned on this show. Who would you send to space and why? Jezza, we'd send the whole PSG team to space for tomorrow's night's game against Aston Villa. From Kaz and Keith, they're in Staffordshire. Who do you want to send to space? Who would you go to space with? We're back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5, we're live across the UK. Talk Drive. Who would you send to space? Great show, Jez. I would send into space Mr. and Mrs. Balls, the Millipede, Starmer, Anjan Reeves, and Reynolds, says Steve. And Angela's... Is it Angela? She's not Raina. She's been on text, is she, Angela? Jezza. Sent to space, apart from Rupert Law, I'd send the entire Parliament's not there then. Sadiq Khan and the high-ups in the police, if there's any room, Harry and Meghan. Then we can start again with Rupert in charge and Peter Bletchley as the new head of police and the Commissioner in the United Kingdom. 87222, I'd send Sadiq to space. It was a one-way trip, making London 100% safer. I like this one. I'd send Greta Thunberg to space. This is brilliant. With a large pair of rear-view mirrors, love, so that she could watch all that planet destroying carbon, not destroying the planet. Chris in Ottershaw. Ottershaw's nice. I don't understand the next bit. 87222, start your message with the word talk. I've never, ever spoken to the next lady. She's arrived at the studio. Honestly, Venice Allen has got to be the greatest name ever.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Venice. Don't do all that on me. Thank you, Jeremy. Women's rights campaigner goes all mushy with me. Venice, that's not your real name.
It's my real name.
You're lying to me.
I was named after my parents' honeymoon.
Were you?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm actually called Bogner Kyle. That's actually the truth. Listen, there's a couple of stories that we wanted to discuss with you.
Yeah.
We touched upon this story last week and it sort of gathered strength over the weekend. A mother was banned from the playground by her daughter's primary school. It's brilliant, this speech. After complaining that children as young as 9 were having their transgender identity affirmed by teachers. Karina Conway was said to have complained that the way gender issues were being taught to pupils at Sunnyside Spencer Academy in Beeston, Nottinghamshire. The mother of 2 claimed the school was teaching 11-year-olds that transgender identity was a protected characteristic, when in fact the Equality Act makes no mention of it. Talk to me, please, Venice Allen.
Yeah, so the Equality Act will talk about gender reassignment, but it's very unclear what that actually means. But transgender identity is not a protected characteristic. I think where people get confused is that it is a protected characteristic in hate crime legislation, but it's not in the Equality Act, which is also quite strange. But I mean, I think the thing about this story is that the woman was banned from the school. Primary school. I'm not quite sure how old her children are, but you actually have to go to a primary school right?
Do you think on a wider scale that there is I'm going to say something that's quite contentious. So I hope she's not listening. My daughter was she's at university, and we were talking about it, and I said, do you find that because she's going through that typical student thing, I'm a fascist and everything's wrong with the world. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not her, you.
Me, yeah. And I said, do you find that the teaching in university is of it's left wing? And she went, yeah. Are we experiencing this madness in primary schools? And if we are, what do we do about it? I mean, is it right for... See, I get slaughtered, but is it right for kids to be learning about that? But then I'll be told by those people, well, it's absolutely normal. I mean, it isn't.
No, it's not absolutely.
I like what Donald Trump said.
I like to send my kids to school to be educated about maths and English and art and sport, not just...
Well, not art. That's not really a subject.
For me, like all those
Something Ryan
subjects.
did.
And like when we went to school, Jeremy, we learned about sex in biology classes, right? We learned about the sperm, the egg and periods and things like that.
Oh, God, she said that word.
Yeah, sorry, but like...
Do you want to know how I learnt the facts of life? This is absolutely true, because my old man's dead, bless him, but he was... No, don't worry about it. He was an absolute rogue and a dog. And I was fishing. This is absolutely true. I was 13. I was fishing one Sunday morning, and he walked along the toe with his pipe, and he went, oh boy, your mother's sent me. And I went, it's all right, I haven't been past first base, and when I do, I'll let you know. And he went, good chat, good fishing, and walked off. That was it. That was it.
That's it.
But
and now,
seemed, in all seriousness, simpler before.
No, but now they teach children, I'm not joking, not in primary, but in secondary, they literally teach children about masturbation and stuff. It's like as if anybody in the history of the universe needed to be taught by a teacher about that. I mean...
That.
I just
My
think
mother couldn't have said either.
I think scrap RSHE or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Scrap it. I don't want them to go to school. I don't want them to be taught. It's all ideological. You can't teach sex and relationships without some kind of ideology. That's
I
not for
worry.
me.
I worry. I mean, I've said this before on the show. I've got more kids than Boris Johnson, but one of my daughters, within 6 months of this school at 13, there were only 30 new kids in the year, girls, and 10 were seeing a child psychologist because they weren't sure about their sexuality. Now, I would never disrespect that, but I'm sorry, that's sheep. That is absolute shit. That is because and that's what worries me, because we're then into a point where people are educating, going, see, I use the word normal and people castigate me. It's like we're pushing an agenda on kids at a ridiculously young age, right?
And not just about gender, not just about sex, but like you're talking about mental health, like completely making them feel that the normal signs of normal feelings that you have when you change from a child to an adult is somehow some kind of like mental health condition or personality disorder. They're completely over-diagnosing. They're making children not... You know, what we want for our children is for them to be resilient adults.
What chances have kids got? I thought about this the other day. You've got an ideology in schools and you've got social media that runs amok with very little control over, and it's no wonder. I don't know about you, but I don't know how old you are. I wouldn't be so rude. Much younger than me,
I'm 50 this year.
You look very good. I'm 60 this year. You're supposed to say the same.
Yeah, you absolutely do, Jeremy.
This is going really well, isn't it, to be honest? It's like a first date on air, this, isn't it? But I do think that life seemed to be simpler when we were kids. You got home from school, bung your jeans and got on your bike. She shouted tea when it was ready. Nowadays, everybody's on phones. Everybody's got... I don't know.
There is, and I also think that maybe some of my peers in terms of women's rights campaigners maybe get a little bit obsessed about what they teach at school, because I don't think the kids actually listen to the teachers about this much. I think they're learning it on TikTok and from their peer group. But I would just say about this lady...
That was my phone, because I didn't say that. I do apologise, it was my interest.
Yeah, I would just say about this lady who was banned from school. Again, I disagree with a lot of my peers, women's rights activists, is that a lot of them have fact sheets, how to go into the school, how to go and tell them about sex and gender. For me, absolutely not. I have confidence in my own parenting, so I just keep my head down with the school, because you never know, they might report you to the police or ban you from the playground. And I, in fact, did actually try and talk to my head when my kids were in primary school about transgenderism, and she never ever looked me in the eye again. She said, oh, hello, when you're queuing up at the gates, and it was, hello, mum, hello, mum, hello, mum. There was like, hello, mum. And I was just like, actually, I learnt then, no, just keep your head down, tell your kids how it is, and it will all be fine.
I think you're right, and we haven't got much time, and I'd love to have more with you. Please do come back. But I think we can always go around these subjects and talk about ideology in schools or ideology in universities or social media. But I'm a real old-fashioned git, to be honest, and I think it all starts at home. And I think a lot of parents pass the buck
Yeah.
They said to me about my kids, how are you sure your kids won't do drugs or won't do this or won't do that?
So, my kids.
Because I've told my kids they know exactly.
Because I'm their dad, I'm their mum.
Yeah, are you?
No.
See, I knew we were linked. I knew there was something. Can you? Yeah, that's fair. Can you come back soon? That's been named after a place with no roads. Venice Allen, you're a lovely lady. Well, I'm not allowed to say that. You're a women's rights campaigner.
No, I'm a lovely lady. You can
you
say
are
that.
lovely.
You're a lovely,
Shall I open the door
gentleman.
for you? Stop flirting. Get out of here. 9 minutes to 5. Stop drive.
I have grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear evidence of a very, very serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
I was listening to that advert saying, talk politics, talk this. I was thinking, what's drive time on Talk? Talk fish and chips. Today we're talking space. I don't care. I do. 87222, start your message with the word talk. Who would you send to space and why? Katy Perry, you remember her? What was that song she sang, Amy? Jodie? What? What? Firework. It was Firework, Jessie, an old cracker. What's the matter with you? Firework by Katy Perry. She goes out with Orlando Bloom. He's hung like a horse, apparently. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Voice note from... who would George send to... I nearly said prison. Space.
The person I would love to send to space would be Mr. Keir Starmer. And then I would tell the Galactic Empire that he was part of the Rebel Alliance and let them blow him away with the Death Star. No Brits was involved, no fingers could be pointed except towards Lord Darth Vader and the evil Emperor.
You carry on taking the medication, George. He's having a good afternoon, Georgie boy. Love it. Voice note from Ian on who he would send to space. Go.
The sad thing is about sending people into space on a one-way ticket is I don't think that we've built a spaceship big enough to take the lunatics off this planet. I mean, from the net zero loonies to the transgender loonies to the racists to the terrorists. There is just so many, to the wokerati. We need some big spaceships.
Big spaceships. Well, now, I don't want to see the analogy between my mother-in-law and the big spaceship and nut jobs, but during my... I hope you weren't offended by the word masturbation, but during my chat with Venice Allen, she said masturbation. It was that exact moment, you heard my phone ping, my mother-in-law texted me, which is, in fact, quite upsetting, isn't it? This is the woman who... Do you know, this is actually true. Jan's an amazing woman, because my mother's dead, but Jan isn't, and she's alive. And I actually got married to her daughter a week before I was going to, because the week that we wanted to was Halloween and she'd have been busy. Oh, God, I'm only joking. Anyway, I would not send my mother-in-law to space. She'd nag them too. 87222, start your message with the word talk. I'd send Ed Miliband to space. Net zero up there is fine. He can do it. Simon Dinage, I'd send all the delegates at COP30 to space. They've even built a runway through the rainforest. Bloody true. 87222, start your message with the word talk to the phone lines, to Lancashire. E-by-gum. No, that's wrong. Tony, hello.
Hi, go on. I like this programme. I can't get enough of it. Brilliant channel.
Sorry, can we slow... Sorry. Yeah. Can we slow down, man? Let's do it again. Spoke too quickly, didn't understand it, thought it were a compliment, and I want to savour every moment. Let's go to Lancashire. Hello, Tony.
Good evening. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm all right. Thanks for tuning in. Do you like this programme?
I do. I just can't get enough of it. I like all the presenters, what presents this channel.
Who's your favourite presenter?
Oh, I know. It's hard to choose. It's between Matt Graham, you, or Kevin O'Sullivan, or James Whale. But I'll tell you what, if we had you lot in government, I think this country would be sorted. Anyway.
Who would be the Prime Minister then? Mike Graham?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. Or James Whale. It's between both of them.
All right, so no, I'm not letting you off this. So Mike Graham will be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Which presenter on this station would you send to space?
Well, I'd say you can fit 6 people in that spaceship or whatever. Anyway, I'd say Nimwit Keir Starmer, Accountant Rachel Reeves, Angela Raver, Stead Ed Miliband, Useless Sadiq Khan, and David Lammy.
Which presenter from Talk would you send to space?
I would like to send any of them because they're always good. I'd miss them actually.
Would you? You need to get out more, but we appreciate... Listen, I mean it. It's very good to have you on, and I don't disagree with you. What are you doing next? Having hot pot?
No, I'm just carrying on watching you after this phone call.
All right. Well, good luck in everything you try and do, and I really appreciate the call. All right, my friend?
Cheers, thank you. Brilliant.
Good man, lovely. Tony there, we paid him to do that. A722, start your message with the word talk. Richard Tice is next up. He says he'd send me to space. He's that bloody rich, he could probably afford a spaceship. Don't you fall for all that reform rubbish. He makes Elon Musk look like a pauper. Let me tell you something. If you want to be part of this vain attempt at a radio programme, 0344 499 1000. We'll talk seriously about two-tier policing, about British Steel, but I want to know who you'd send to space and why. Who do you hate that much? 87222. Start your message with the word talk. As I said, I won't send my mother-in-law because she wouldn't fit in the spaceship. Anyway, news at 5 and Tice is next on Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back hour 2 of Drive for Monday. We're live across the UK. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. As ever, you can ring us if you want to, if you can afford the 10p. 0344 499 1000 or text to 87222. Who would you send to space? Gary in Glasgow. He says, Jez, I'd send all the Labour government to space with a one-way ticket and throw in the SNP for being useless. They're all a bunch of... Oh, all right, fair enough. We've got a voice note. Martin, who would you send to space, Marty boy?
One person, quite frankly, I think needs to go to space in a one-way journey is Jeremy Kyle. If he goes on about his age one more time, how he's 60 this year, he was 59 last year, repetitively over the course of the weeks and months, we have to hear him, I'm 60 this year, I'm 60 this year. But quite frankly, Mr. Jeremy Kyle, phone home, phone home.
Richard Tice, did you put that cheeky bugger up to that? That Martin, he's implying that I should go to space.
I'm hoping he's going to send me the invoice because that was an absolutely brilliant message. Don't take it personally, Jeremy. I think, actually, Jeremy, you and I should go together because we might find some sanity in space compared to the insanity that's going on in this country.
Before we get on to that, can I just pick you up on something? Tice? Did you just say that you were happy to pay... This is how rich he is. Were you happy to pay for me to be sent to space? Did you say send the invoice?
No, we crowdfund the costs. Look, the reality is, I mean, we're living in a world of insanity here. Madness. Absolute insanity, wherever you look.
Let's start with the reform story this weekend. Let's start with your story, really, the reform story, because yet again, reform showed itself to have its finger on the heart and the pulse of what's going on for the British people. British Steel, really interesting chat with Benedict Spence about this. I'll try and make it as simple as possible for myself, not for you. Suddenly we hear governments being on Friday recalling Parliament for Saturday. British Steel is at a dreadful moment, and the Chinese bosses are trying to sabotage it and turn off the furnaces, and it's a disaster, and 150,000 jobs, and we're going to do this. Now, Benedict Spence said, this is absolute Mrs. Yvette Blank, that this sabotage is fake. This is because nobody, certainly the Chinese, when they were sold this by Johnson, who should also take responsibility, the Conservative government, nobody knew that the energy prices would go through the roof, and they were buying a business that wasn't sustainable. So he said, Benedict Spence, love your response, that actually they should have actioned this a long time ago, the government. This is a panic last-minute measure, and it's all about net zero, which has forced up energy prices, which has made yet another British industry unsustainable. We think we're going to get a cop-out through Johnson by selling it to the Chinese, and they've gone, why the hell do we need this? And we're now... And it will lead to nationalisation. Would that be a summary that you would agree with?
It's a combination of many things. I mean, Benedict's on the right lines. But Nigel and I, 6 years ago, we put out a clear statement to the press and on social media saying we should turn British Steel into a strategic national corporation so that you can invest in it long-term, bring in long-term patient capital, a combination of government capital and pension fund capital with top quality management. That's what you needed back then. You need to invest in the blast furnaces. We said, don't sell it to the Chinese. The government ignored our splendid advice. I stood up in the House of Commons on Saturday and just reminded everybody about that. And we are where we are. And yes, but we could see then the energy prices were too high back then. We knew they'd go higher. Sure enough, net stupid zero has meant exactly that, as well as the ridiculous carbon taxes. But here's the key thing. The truth is, the Chinese, we believe, never wanted this to be a success. We think they were always going to close down these furnaces and
asset strip it, right?
They're going to asset strip it. They bought it for give or take £1. It came with hundreds of millions of inventory and cash and assets, and we think they were going to take back the primary steelmaking capability back to China and basically have the UK in a stranglehold. Well, thanks to our efforts, Nigel and I were in Scunthorpe last Tuesday. We said there were 3 days to save it. I talked to people about having to recall Parliament. They said, no, it won't happen. I thought something would happen, and sure enough, we got recalled on Saturday for the first time on a Saturday for 43 years, I think it is. Look, I said on Saturday, I said to the Secretary of State, you need to show some cojones and nationalise it now. Get on with it, man. And they're almost there. Once again, they're sort of behind the curve. They don't want to admit that reform is right, but basically we are, as we have been on many other things. This is actually a great opportunity to invest in refurbishing and relining these blast furnaces, to bring in additional management. It's an opportunity to open the coke and coal mine in Cumbria that Ed Miliband basically banned last autumn. And forget the myths, by the way, the lies being spouted by the net zero zealots and the Labour government that coke and coal in Cumbria is not suitable for these blast furnaces. It is. I've had it confirmed to me by British Steel themselves.
Do you know what I don't understand, Richard? And we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and last week on the show you went on, but we were talking about the whole Trump tariff situation. And I look, I don't have your intelligence, but I've got strong views on many things, OK? I voted for Brexit because I believe that, I mean, I'm a bit old-fashioned, so we were an island, right? We fought 2 world wars for our independence, and I didn't really understand why we were being controlled by a European, if you like, dictatorship organisation that was saying, this is how much you have to make, this is how much you have to pay for it, this is how much you have to charge for it. And I thought Brexit was a chance for us to sort of, a bit like Germany post-Second War, go into ourselves and start investing in our businesses and making stuff and being competitive in the world and saying, you know, stuff your tariffs and stuff your rules, we're great, we're going to be great again. That's why I voted for Brexit. That never happened. And then you get this whole thing about we're in the, you know, whatever America says. This is an example, isn't it? British Steel. We've got bloody oil and gas. We've got a steel business that, as you said, I mean, Christ, the business secretaries have failed when he lied about being a solicitor. We got no chance. But I don't know why somebody doesn't say, you know, British Steel, Great Britain, why don't we start investing? Why don't we start believing? Why don't we start making things that the world will be envious of again? Well, why are we in this permanent cycle of everything's a load of rubbish?
It's incredibly simple, Jeremy. You have to have courage, you have to have vision, and you have to have the ability, the business background to understand how this works. I think most people realise that it is utterly bonkers to leave millions of tonnes of British coal underground in Cumbria and under the sea in Cumbria, not have hundreds of British jobs and create that wealth. Instead, import coal from Australia and from Japan. I mean, it's just absolutely bonkers. Not only are you sending them your money, but also you're actually creating more CO2, if you're worried about CO2, by shipping this stuff from over there than a couple of hundred miles across the UK. It's just basic common sense.
Well, no, here's a really interesting thing, because Trump's on Sky, and he used that, didn't he, during his inauguration speech when he talked about common sense. Reform, this station, all sorts of people have been talking about common sense. Mike, it's his mantra, right? So here's what I don't understand. The net zero madness. We talk about Miliband. We talk about the billions it's going to cost. We talk about how this country right now can't even afford the interest on the debts it's got, let alone the billions he wants to squander. When does the government, when do those ideology freaks, as I call them, start to understand that the British people don't want net zero? They don't give a toss. They want to be able, yes, to heat their homes. They want to be able to pay their mortgages and feed their kids and go away on a basic holiday. That's what they want. And they see a government, for whatever reason, or even an ideology, the government before, that don't seem to be listening. When is that going to change? Is it going to change?
Well, people are looking at the polls, and obviously in a democracy we have elections, and as elections come and go over the next few years, I think people have their opportunity to put their mark in their ballot box, and I think that's what all the parties will reflect on. And frankly, both the Tories and the Labour Party are both culpable for the grotesque financial negligence of net stupid zero, and the penny is now dropping. And when you've got editorials in the Times and the Mail last week and in the Telegraph saying that net zero is not sustainable in its current form and it needs relooking at, I tell you what, we are making progress.
Good.
And Nigel and I, we've got more scars on our back from the abuse we've got about net zero than from Brexit. And so I tell you what, this is very personal, and we are heading towards a victory on this, and this will literally save the British economy. Because if we don't, then the rest of our industry will be destroyed. You've got the steel industry under threat, which we're talking about now. The car industry is sadly going down the tubes. The chemicals industry has almost gone down the tubes. Oil and gas in Aberdeen is on its back. We can turn all of this around, but you have to scrap the ideology of net stupid zero. That is the battleground over the next couple of years. And I tell you what, it will be brutal.
Do you have, yourself personally and your party alongside that, do you have concerns about China, about China's influence, about the threat from China?
Yeah, huge concerns. I mean, and again, it was stated this morning by someone, look, at the end of the day, the concerns is with the Chinese Communist Party, with the regime. There are some wonderful Chinese people that we all know and have got friends, but it's the regime and the fact that they think on a 50-year view and they think about destroying us economically and by just gradually creating this stranglehold. And that's what they've done with so many cheap goods that come our way, produced, of course, with completely different labour standards, completely different environmental and regulatory standards. And so we end up being utterly and truly royally shafted. And that's what President Trump, and some people like him, some people don't, but that's what he's realised with the American economy. And we need to have leaders in this country who are going to stand up for the British economy, stand up for the British people and say, we're going to bring your bills down, we're going to bring the cost of living down. And the way to do that is to scrap daft regulations and scrap net stupid zero. And the moment we start to do that, and the British people join the dots and realise what has made us all poorer per person, literally every week, every month, that is going to be a very, very important thing.
Well, just having made us all feel really rotten, you and me, about British Steel and this Labour government and the Tory government and net stupid zero, that's my new phrase, let's talk about something we should also be massively embarrassed about in this country, because there's about 150 things, to be honest, going through my list today. In a Talk exclusive, I have to sort of avoid hyperventilating when I read this crap. One of Britain's largest police forces, you know this, Greater Manchester Police, they've got a positive action team, which is basically a task force, they go and stand outside supermarkets, Richard Tice, to, ready for this, target ethnic minority communities and collect names, regardless of whether they're remotely qualified, can speak English or anything at all, or been longer. They want them to join the police because in their mind, it didn't matter if they couldn't speak English or never sat an exam, it's all about adding ticks in the boxes. You've got that, and you've got West Yorkshire Police, even worse. They had a non-white policy of recruiting last week. This week, they're sending the entire West Yorkshire Police, including all the administrative staff, that's 10,000 of them, on a 2-day cultural awareness training course focused on black culture and police's history with black communities. It's all part of a rare action plan for the constabulary to create an anti-racist police service, not force, because that's too strong a word to use, trusted by black people, Richard. Now, call me boring and call me old-fashioned. I come from the world where you're supposed to employ the person that's best for the job. But are these people taking the mickey or what? We've got the highest rates of crime. We've got less policemen and women on the streets. London is an utter bloody disgrace with knife and crime everywhere. People running shops. If they call the police don't turn up, and they're spending money and time. Tick boxing. Tell me if reform ever made it into power. This rubbish would be reversed, man.
You've got to scrap all this rubbish, and the way you do that is you scrap the 2010 Equality Act and all the absurd diversity, equality and inclusion requirements under that. That's where all this nonsense has come from. And again, it actually just comes back to the simple slogan of common sense, where you say, how about the best man or woman, and there are only men or women, there's none of these sort of furry cats and all these 105 genders garbage. And you just say, it's the best person for the job, please. And
I want to tell you, as a politician, I wasn't going to do this, and there's no. It's because it relates to a friend, but they're not here, and I wouldn't be so disrespectful. I want to tell you all a story that's absolutely true. I was away at the weekend before last with one of my friends, and he was telling me about his partner's daughter's boyfriend. who's just come out of university. Listen to this, Ryan. This is absolutely goddamn true. He's come out with a 2-1 in economics. He wants to work in the City of London. He's applied to 125 companies over 6 months, and he hasn't had one response. And I promise you, this is on my life. So he decided to play a little bit of a game, because there's 100 questions, and he decided to put non-binary and sex, asexual or something. You're laughing at me, but it's absolutely true. He got 3 interviews within a week. It is, mate, I promise you on my life, that is a 22-year-old with a 2-1 honours degree in economics who wants to work in a hedge fund in London, and he thought he'd have a bit of fun after over 50 rejections, and whether it was non-binary or asexual or whatever, 3 interviews.
It tells you all you need to know. I mean, it's just insane. And sometimes markets overreach themselves, and I think this whole woke nonsense, it has either just gone over the top and overreached itself, or we are at peak woke madness. But there is a link, isn't it? Because there's that very simple expression, go woke, go broke. And the British economy, we are going bankrupt. We are going broke unless we turn this around. And this is a critical part of it. You've got to get back to some proper, strong leadership that people respect, based on common sense and values that we understand, and a sense of discipline and deterrence. And people have to understand there are consequences for their actions. And yeah, you know, this stuff is...
I was talking to somebody else at the weekend about reform, strange enough, and I said, when I had you on this week, or Nigel, I put this to you. This guy was a Tory voter, wants to vote reform, but said, and that was a really interesting point, I need to know more from them, but I'm learning that on a daily basis. But he said, every single politician I've ever voted for in my 50 years says, we'll take on these people, we'll take on these. But in your instance, you've talked about the civil service, you've talked about the Equalities Act, all those sorts of things. And he said, but all the politicians I've ever voted for, including Johnson, who he said I believed and wanted to be Prime Minister, get to that position and then turn around and say, oh, well, things have changed, or governing is very different, blah, blah, blah. He said, I need to be convinced that actually reform would take on the blob, that reform would get rid of the ECHR, that reform would actually do all of this stuff. What would you say to him? That's a floating voter. That, to me, is a really interesting question.
Well, I think the difference is that, unlike the current Labour government, or indeed, frankly, the previous Tory government, we've been round the block a few times. We're of a certain age, similar age to your good self.
Thanks, mate.
And that means that we've got some wisdom and experience, and we've got a successful track record. And we are asking people to trust us, of course. And but I just have confidence that people know that we're not in this for we're not some sort of 30-year-olds just in this for sort of power games, unlike the sort of uniparty of the two main parties. We're doing this because the country's in a terrible state. Yeah. We mean it, and frankly, we've taken all the abuse and the grief and the heartache, and we think we're making great progress. So I just say to people like that, I tell you what, trust us. Put your mark in the box and give us a chance, and we'll show you that we can deliver. And that's the difference. And if we don't, you'll kick us out.
A couple of questions to finish. Have you watched Celebrity Big Brother at all? Have you seen Michael Fabricant? Michael Fabricant, the extraordinary ex-Tory MP, friend of Boris Johnson's, got a mop for a hairstyle. Have you been watching Michael Fabricant in Celebrity Big Brother?
No, I've got far better things to do, frankly.
Do you think that if it all went wrong, we'd ever see Richard Tice in the Celebrity Big Brother house?
Definitely not. That I can 100% guarantee.
OK. Just going back to our first question, which was who would you send to space? Martin very rudely said me. You agreed with him. Rachel says, don't ignore Martin, Jez. He's probably jealous. He's in his 20s and he probably is getting grey hair already. She said, I would say that Mrs. Kyle is a very, very lucky lady. Obviously, Rachel's on some form of medication. Which MP would you send to space?
Oh, no, I'll get in terrible trouble if I answer that. But it's fair to say there's quite a long list, actually. I think we might need a number of rockets.
How many MPs are there in the House of Commons?
650.
So I reckon we might 646 of them you'd send, wouldn't you? 646 of them, yeah?
There's a fairly long list, put it like that.
All right. Listen, mate, it's always a real pleasure, and we appreciate your involvement on the station, talking about British Steel there and talking about two-tier policing. Thank you so much indeed. Richard Tice responding. I don't know if you've been following the story. Katie Price. No, not Katie Price. Jesus, if Katie Price had gone to space, can you imagine if that... I don't even want to talk about it. Would you have got her breasts into the space capsule? That's the big question, isn't it? But it was Katy Perry that went to space for 11 minutes. It's the longest 11 minutes of her life. We've been asking on this show, who would you send to space? Hello, Jess, says Rachel. I'd like to send Jess Phillips on a one-way ticket. Good. Oh, no, I'm not reading that. 87222, start your message with the word talk and text. That's the text number. You can phone us. 0344 499 1000. Is this another voice, no? Rich, go.
Personally, I would send all tool makers born in around the 1930s to space with a one-way ticket.
So is that Starmer's dad was a tool maker? Is that why? That's the joke, because Starmer's the tool. See, I knew I'd get there in the end. Talk Drive.
I have grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear evidence of a very, very serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
That is Talk Drive. About this time every single day, I get the munchies, and rather wonderfully, Jodie, who is like, it's like having a carer. I think she is actually a carer. Today's delectation is always like a biscuit. She's come and I've got you some chocolates come from Kazakhstan. It's been in the fridge for a year. So I'll probably die between now and the end of the show, so there we go. 0344 419 1000. Monica's in Sheffield, the centre of this big story. At its height, 150,000 people worked in the steel industry, Jez, in Sheffield's Don Valley. You sell the crown jewels off steel, coal, cutlery and manufacturing. What do you get? The mess we are in now. Yeah, I'm not reading that. Oh, yes. Good afternoon, JK, says Sean. So British Steel is now being run by the government, in particular that failed solicitor Reynolds. I suppose they've made such a success of the country since they conned their way in. We should be feeling excited. I don't think we should at all. Dell in Salisbury says, we're letting the Chinese build a huge embassy at the heart of our government. Complete madness. What the hell's going on? I'll tell you who's a real a speaker about all of this, sort of the situation with the blast furnaces in Scunthorpe, a Chinese investment, and this is the creator and executive director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. You try saying this. This man has got the greatest name in the world. Luke de Pulford, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Yeah, very good to see you. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Treat me as the layman I am. I was talking to Benedict Spence, obviously wasn't here on Friday, and this story started and the government recalled Parliament, I think first time in 42 years, sabotaging British Steel, the Chinese. So British Steel was sold by Boris Johnson's government, so they're totally culpable. Benedict Spence says this sabotage is fake and this is rubbish. The Labour Party will have known exactly what was going on and should have acted sooner. But in essence, the whole issue with the British steel industry, which is why it must now be nationalised, is because the net zero madness has raised energy prices, which the Chinese wouldn't have known when they paid for this, unless it was an asset-stripping business deal, I don't know. And everybody's running around. And he said the very reason that so many of our industries are going to fall on their backside is because of the financial madness of net zero. Just tell us from your point of view, because as a Chinese investor, why would I buy British Steel if it's screwed? I don't understand that.
You'd buy British Steel because you were trying to further the geopolitical aims of the Chinese Communist Party. That's why this is being done. Everybody seems to be labouring under the misapprehension that there are private companies totally separate from the state in China. There are not. Companies that are operating abroad and doing things like making investment in UK critical infrastructure do so at the largesse of the Chinese Communist Party. The investments that have happened around the country, and it's not just steel, unfortunately, it's nuclear, it's water, it's critical rail infrastructure. They are being done for strategic aims. I want to read you a quote, Jeremy, because this kind of stuff doesn't get dug into enough. Don't take my word for all of this. Take the word of Xi Jinping, the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. What does he have to say? Well, he said this in April 2020. China will, quote, aim to form a counterattack and deterrence against other countries by fostering killer technologies and strengthening the global supply chain's dependence on China, close quote. That's Xi Jinping himself. So you can see what their industrial strategy is about. It's about making the rest of the world dependent upon it. And to do that, it needs to defenestrate the industry in other countries. It does that through huge government subsidies for things like electric vehicles. It does that by developing monopolies in areas like renewables. And it does that by buying up critical infrastructure and running it into the ground. And that's what we've seen.
So you said that the one thing that people don't seem to understand, this isn't private investment. I wrote it down. This is at the largesse of the Chinese Communist Party. So explain something to me, just a layperson off the street. In 2019, what the bloody hell then was the Conservative Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his cabinet doing? Selling business to China in that instance. Explain to me how that happens. And also, add on to that, are you telling me that Keir Starmer and his government didn't know this was getting to the point that it was getting to? Both of those questions, I think most people will go, well, why did we sell it to the Chinese then?
Jeremy, no party comes out of this well. This has been going on for decades. We're still pretending that China's just joined the World Trade Organization and that they're going to democratize and open up to the world. And they're not. And we knew they weren't going to, even back then. But the past 10 years, there's really no excuse. China has really clamped down. They're so repressive at home and they're so aggressive on the international stage that nobody could pretend anymore. So there's really no excuse for it. I think what's happened is that successive governments wanting a positive economic story to tell voters have gone to China cap in hand. And to do that, they've opened up our critical infrastructure. And with it, they've brought massive national security risks. They've exposed our infrastructure to foreign control, all kinds of foreign interference, in fact, and they've made us less resilient. So, yeah, I mean, look, no party comes out of this well. They should have known better. People who warned about it were accused of being tinfoil hat-wearing China haters. Well, look at them now. They're all China hawks, having realised the way that Chinese companies will behave around our critical infrastructure.
So people like Ian Duncan Smith were talking the truth for years?
Yes, of course. I mean, Ian's been very clear-eyed on China. His instincts are absolutely correct about the nature of the Chinese Communist Party. Unfortunately, there are some within government who still want to hold on to this idea that China's going to rescue the UK economy. They're not. There's no evidence.
So there's my thing. And look, somebody was saying, all you ever do is say you're old. I am getting older. This is what I don't understand. This is why I voted for Brexit. I thought this was an opportunity for this island that fought 2 world wars for its independence, and I'm being completely honest, and was supposed to have led the Industrial Revolution, was always seen as a leader. Why didn't we go back into ourselves and create businesses and products that were the envy of the world? But what have we got? We've got a government that is raising taxes on small businesses with NI that destroys it. We've got a workers' rights bill that means if you get a headache, you can have 6 months off full pay because you're feeling depressed. We won't make a deal with America because Trump's just calling all the shots, but we've left the European Union. Here's an example of a business that we've sold to the Chinese. Isn't this a chance to get this business back and make something? Why is there such apathy in this bloody country? Why are we shelling? Let's take the money from the Chinese. What happened to... I'm sounding like my dad. What happened to Great Britain, Luke? What happened to this country being a leader?
So we've had a failure, years and years of a failure around industrial policy. You know, labour is expensive in this country. And if you've got a load of slave labour in China, you can undercut the market. Or if you've got very cheap labour in India, you can undercut the market. We're not competitive, not just because of the expense of labour, but because of regulation. And that's what's made it really difficult. It's hard for these industries within the UK to compete against that. So this is a big problem. You know, it needs people to really put their heads together and to sort it out. We're still lacking the political will to do that. But let's just say something briefly about the EU, because this will really stick in the throat. The EU is now much tougher on China than we are. They imposed tariffs on the European Union for Chinese-made electric vehicles. The US did it, Canada did it, the EU did it. The UK has not done it. We will become, and I predict this confidently, a dumping ground for cheap Chinese electric vehicles. It will defenestrate what remains of our car industry, and then we will be dependent upon China for them. That's the kind of wrong-headed decision-making that disadvantages us.
In terms of what I said to you at the beginning of our chat about what Benedict Spence said, you sort of railed against, I think, the fake news, and you do believe there is a degree of Chinese sabotage. We've tried to talk about, you know, why that wasn't seen. Do you think that net zero is anything to blame for this situation, though?
I think certainly it plays into regulation, which has made it difficult for UK industries to compete, for sure. Now, there's a broader picture around renewables which doesn't get talked about enough, like, for example, the fact that we're totally dependent on China for renewables. Here's a little story, Jeremy, I think your listeners will be interested to know. The key ingredient for solar panels is polysilicon. About 90% of that comes from China, and about 40% of that from Xinjiang. Xinjiang, as you know, is where Uyghurs have been put in concentration camps, over 1 million of them, and that polysilicon production is strongly linked to Uyghur forced labour, state-imposed forced labour. So not only have we legislated ourselves through net zero into dependency on China, we've legislated ourselves into dependency upon slave labour. That's what we've actually done with those policies. So I can't understand it, can't get my head around it. And
so for all the ideological hand-wringing and the billions that apparently we must spend because we must show that we lead the world in the smallest amount of carbon emissions, the rest of the world just getting on with trying to survive and pay their mortgages and doing stuff, the fact of the matter is that it doesn't save us money. We end up having to import because we can't make enough electricity. And where we do import it from, it's made almost under slave labour conditions. And that, wouldn't you just, I would love to say that to Ed Miliband. You know, I get massively frustrated with the do-gooding attitude of these people. If you dare to criticise net zero, they look at you like you've gone into their house on Christmas Day and sort of stolen their kids or something. It's appalling. They look at you like you don't know anything. And I keep saying this thing about, you know, the country is skinned. But, I mean, the morality behind that, what you've just said, is extraordinary. And we should, of course, we should be concerned about China. I mean, you talk so brilliantly. Do you think the more and more... I mean, it's a general question to finish, but You know, you talked about Ian Duncan Smith sticking his head above the parapet about the Chinese threat. Do you think that people are waking up to that as a threat, the threat of net zero as well? Do you think there is a realisation gathering strength across this country, Luke?
I think what I'd say is that there is now complete parliamentary consensus across all political parties, including the Labour Party. There are a lot of Labour MPs having to hold their noses at the moment because of the posture of the current government on China. They're not happy about it. They're not happy about a green transition dependent on slave labour. So yeah, there has been an awakening, but it's a little bit like this is the last gasp of the so-called golden era of relations with China. Some people still gripping onto that as if it can be a reality, when actually, if you're realistic about it, you look at the thing and you would agree with what our MI5 and MI6 chiefs have said. China is our #1 security threat, and we need to rip them out of our critical infrastructure if we're going to do right by our citizens.
It's really interesting. Just one text to finish. No name. China, Jez, is a major force, and the elite sold us out.
Well, I certainly have sympathy with that, and I don't have much sympathy with the naivety, given the fact that we have been screaming about this for the past 5 years and been ridiculed, actually. But now they're going to have to realise the chickens will come home to roost.
So good to I'm not sure you're allowed to say chickens, eh? So good to have you on, Luke, and I really genuinely mean that. Thank you so much indeed. Luke de Pulford, creator and executive director of the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. Fascinating. He says it's not fake news. There is sabotage. These are Chinese companies created only at the largesse of the Chinese Communist Party, whose intention is to infiltrate almost every part of as many different countries, including ours, as possible. 22 minutes to 6. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
20 to 6, we're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive. 0344 499 1000 is the only telephone number that you need. You can I don't know what's wrong with me today. I think I'm on something. You can ring Jodie on that. You can ring Ryan and leave a voice note. You start your voice note with Watford a crap. Question we've thrown out for you. Who would you send to space that you don't like and why? Loads of people. Toby from Suffolk, I would suggest sending Ed Miliband in space to an electric-powered rocket. Yes, well, I think poor old Ed, well, not poor old Ed Miliband, he's a total idiot. I think he's definitely going. It's quite interesting. Mike Graham's been on. He's obviously enjoying it. He says, could we put the entire BBC Board of Governors on so we can close the ridiculous waste of time down? By the way, we're going to play at 6 o'clock. Great interview Mike did on Breakfast Morning. Government Minister. Watch this person squirm when Mike calls them out. We'll do that with Isabel Oakeshott just after 6. She calls before that. We'll go to London. 0344 499 1000. Paul, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got, pal?
Yeah, hi, Jez. Just an aside on this business about the steel industry. There's a nice letter in the Times today from someone called Neil Bailey, who's worked in the industry for 40 years. Yeah. And there's two words which come out, inefficient steel works and the unions. The simplicity of it was that this guy's worked in the industry for 40 years, it says. The companies I work for offer significant investment to increase efficiencies in the steel-making process, all of which were soundly rejected by the unions, as their proposals also reduce headcount. It is a travesty that taxpayers now have to bail out these archaic industries, allowing the unions to continue to have a future say in any changes that are made. And then there's another one in terms of this blast furnace business. The blast furnace, apparently invented in 1856, is no longer economically viable or ecologically viable.
So put yourself in the position of Johnson's government, and I'm getting more annoyed with him by the day. So they are guilty of selling their business to... I mean, obviously the Chinese, if you listen to Luke de Pulford, who's set up that interparliamentary alliance on China, he will say, this is not fake, this is ridiculous. This is a government that fell for what... And many governments have done it, and Ian Duncan Smith and others have said it for a long, long time. The influence that China wants to create economically, socially, across so many of our infrastructures, he said, these aren't private companies going, oh, let's spend £700 billion buying British steel. He said that the largesse of the Chinese Communist Party is behind the money that is being made available. My question is, how bloody naive have our politicians been to sell off large segments of British industry rather than, call me outrageous here, getting your head out of your backside and making British steel successful and independent and financially viable for Great Britain here and beyond? What is wrong with people again? I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's very short-termism, and also in some ways it's nothing to do with government. These are private industries. They should step back and let
well, yeah, but that doesn't run true, does it? Because he recalled Parliament and has created a bill instantly that's got through that's going to take over control of British Steel. My argument is Johnson should have taken control of British Steel in 2019 and thought, you know what, we're going to turn this business round and we're going to make it successful. Paul in London, thank you. Steve Forrest says, Jez, British Steel should never have been sold. Even if it doesn't make a profit, we still need it. The Chinese knew we made the best steel in the world, so that's why they brought it. They wanted our steel recipe so they could copy it. Steel is not just steel. There are many types. Let's get the industry back to what it was in its heyday. Steve, I think that's fine, but I also think Luke de Pulford would know. He'd certainly know more than me. I'm not saying he'd know more than you, right? But the fact of the matter is, if it is an asset strip or it is about infiltrating our infrastructure, the naivety of our politicians doesn't bear thinking about. Hello to, Andrew O'Rourke. You see your brother didn't do very well in the Celebrity Big Brother house. There's a lot of talk... Nobody's going to get that, are they? Mickey... Never mind. There's a lot of talk about Scunthorpe Steelworks, Jez, but no mention of the loss of Port Talbot Steelworks, with a huge loss of 5,000 jobs and an extra 15,000 jobs reliant on the steelworks. Couldn't agree more. I do think it's something that's going to really resonate with a lot of people, annoy lots of people. 0344 499 1000. The other thing we're talking about today is two-tier policing. I mean, we've got police forces the length and breadth of this country doing remarkable work, like Greater Manchester Police, who stand outside supermarkets. They're positive action teams into recruiting ethnic minorities. Well, basically, they say, we really want to get as many people in who can't speak English. Don't know the British law, but it ticks boxes. And then we've got the West... That's good. That's what we're going to do. Then we've got the West Yorkshire Police Force. They've stopped hiring white candidates, and their latest madness is to send all 10,000 of their employees, including officers and administration staff, on a two-day... This is just beyond me. On a two-day cultural awareness training course, focusing on black culture and policing's history with black communities. It's part of a Black Rare action plan for the constabulary to create an anti-racist police service. Can't say force because that's too strong. Trusted by black people. Let's go to Michael in Taunton. Hello, Michael. You're on Talk Drive. What's happening?
Hi, Jeremy. Good to speak with you. Thank you. Yeah.
Do you know my connection with Taunton?
No, tell me.
So my parents lived for years just outside.
Oh, wonderful. I live just outside in a little village, but I won't give that away.
Whereabouts?
A few miles out.
Well, they're dead, my parents. You don't have to tell me where they're. My parents lived in Broadway. They are. I've said it. They're dead now, so it doesn't matter. Go on.
Yeah, but what I'm about to say, some people might not like. I've been preaching as a Christian preacher on the streets of my local town and nationwide and other countries around the world for 14 years. I've been wrongfully arrested 6 times and prosecuted, found not guilty eventually every time. And I know for a fact that this happened quite a long time ago when it started 12 years ago. And I was called the canary in the coal mine and the most arrested Christian preacher in recent history. And I saw what was coming, and it's come home to roost now. When our police forces are taught the ideology you've just spoken about, and that's in our universities and schools, like we had parents getting banned now for challenging transgender teaching to their children, what do we expect is going to happen? The brainwashing and the like with our police forces, they cannot and do not police without fear and favour because they're hammered with this and they love it. They like it, a lot of them.
I must say, I wouldn't... you really have amazed me because we probably wouldn't agree religiously, but I absolutely agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. There seem to be too many instances of the police, in many forces, deciding what they want to allow to happen and what they don't. We know about the Palestinian demonstrations. I think everybody should be able to demonstrate privately, but it's anybody that disagrees with the immigration. And I'm not condoning anything that went on at Southport, not at all, before anybody jumps up and down, but they were all far right and in prison in 5 minutes.
Well, I would.
And then it took 8 years to bring the child rapist gangs in Rotherham, not grooming, rapist gangs, to justice because the police said, we don't want to upset communities. I think we have to be really, really careful. In my mind, Michael, and I will never change this opinion, if you break the law, I don't care the colour, I don't care anything like that. You break the law, OK, then you should serve the punishment. But they're looking, I mean, there's a woman in prison for Lucy Connolly, for 31 months. For I don't condone what Lucy Connolly said. I certainly don't bloody well condone the way she's been treated when other people have been just let off with a slap on the wrist.
Yes, but the problem is this is so deep-rooted now and fundamental with our authorities, our police, the guys who hold the reins of power. This nation is heading towards big trouble. Historians are warning, if we're not careful, what's coming. And you can already see the start of it.
I got to go, mate. I really appreciate it. Don't think me rude, Michael. We're up against the clock. I'm just watching Rory McIlroy. What an extraordinary night sport. Next, Sam Ellard is actually deigning us, right? Deigning us with his presence. He's actually decided to turn up. Talk sport. Well, no, talk sport. You see what I did there? Sport on Talk or Talk Sport is next. Coming back.
grave concerns where you have a situation whereby those people are literally put into accelerated justice procedures and get into jail for long sentences within a very short period of time. At the same time, you have things like well-recorded incidents, such as the incident at Manchester Airport, where it took the police months to charge those people who there's clear evidence of wrongdoing on their behalf. So that's
clear
that's
evidence
the kind
of a very, very
about.
serious crime taking place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 8 minutes to 6. Push the button, please, Ames.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Samuel Ellard, a very good evening. How are you?
Evening, Jeremy. Evening, everyone. How are you?
I'm all right. Listen, you're not a golf nut. I am. That was the most incredible roller coaster last night. Rory McIlroy claiming his career Grand Slam. It was extraordinary. You're not a golf fan, are you? Did you watch it? Tell me you watched it. It was extraordinary, man.
Yeah, I watched it.
It was. Honestly, I've played golf with Rory McIlroy years ago in the BMW PGA. That man. I just, the pent-up release of emotion after 11 years of that, being on his back, winning the Grand Slam. It was unbelievable, Sam, wasn't it? It was up and down like anything. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that's why I think yesterday was one of the best sporting kind of evenings I've had in a long time. It's kind of what makes the Masters so special, the ups, the downs, the flows, the changes. Rory McIlroy double bogey in the first. You feared the worst. He then feels in control for the majority of the afternoon, and then there's kind of a McIlroy choke towards the end, and you think he's going to choke, he's going to bottle it again. Bryson DeChambeau, who was the one that was kind of putting the most pressure on him, had a big collapse. There was Justin Rose's rise. McIlroy's putt to win it didn't go. It goes to a playoff. It was an evening that just had absolutely everything, and I think you're right, Jez. I think whether you're a golfer or not, I think everybody was aware of the McIlroy story. This guy that had won every major, apart from the Masters. Can he complete the career Grand Slam? No. He's come close. He's come so far. And then to get his hands on the green jacket yesterday in the most dramatic circumstances, going to a playoff, it was just I think it was a special evening, Jeremy, to sit back and watch.
Just a fairy tale. And I'll make a sporting prediction because I like that. The floodgates will absolutely open now. He will win 5 or 6 majors with his eyes closed over the next 5 years now. That has been on his, the pressure. But listen, fair play to him. We've got loads to talk about. But yeah, an extraordinary achievement. Rory McIlroy completing the career Grand Slam, one of only 6 people. And when you look at the people that have done it, Tiger Woods, Gary Player, Sam Snead, Ben Hogan, Gene Saracen, extraordinary club to join. Fantastic achievement. We got some breaking news. Newcastle head coach Eddie Howe recovering in hospital. Read about this over the weekend. He's actually been diagnosed with pneumonia and will miss their next 2 matches. Crucial matches as well. They did really well yesterday, destroying... They are crap, Man United. Sorry, I can't think of any other way. Newcastle winning 4-1 under Jason. I like to be seen on the sidelines, Tyndall. But Eddie Howe not well.
Yeah, as you said there, Jez, it's just literally been revealed before I come to where he is. Being diagnosed with pneumonia, remains in hospital and is recovering. And yeah, missed the game yesterday. They got a big game Wednesday night, Newcastle. It's their game in hand. So he's going to miss that, home to Crystal Palace. And they go to Aston Villa on Saturday for a big game in the race for the top 4. But obviously, first and foremost, most importantly, I hope that Eddie is okay and is going to recover well when he can be back on the sidelines shortly. But it's been an incredible few weeks for Newcastle. There was that Carabao Cup win, of course, and it's 4 league wins in a row in the Premier League. They're up to 4th in the table. They're 1 point behind Nottingham Forest in 3rd, and they've got a game in hand. You expect them to beat Palace, and if they do that, they go to 3rd. And you'd have to say, now 5th place has been officially confirmed. That will be a Champions League spot. I don't see Newcastle coming 6th or lower. So beating Man United, this is where Man United are at now. It's sort of Newcastle beating them 4-1. isn't a surprise. It would have been a surprise if it was anything other than that.
Actually, for me, what's really impressive about Newcastle is that after the highs of the Carabao Cup and 70 years and all that, they've kept doing it, so they've stepped up. Listen, I'll take it. Liverpool 2, West Ham 1.
Yeah, I mean, West Ham is 17th in the table. I almost looked at the league table and I sort of thought you'd be 12th or 13th. You've crept down to 17th. I mean, thank goodness that the bottom three are absolutely useless and hopeless. But yeah, the sort of Graham Potter honeymoon period, Jez, hasn't quite lived up, has it?
No, but you were crap in the second half and very lucky to get the win.
I'll be completely honest with you. You're absolutely
We deserved a draw. Sorry, no, we haven't fired, but we deserved a draw.
To use a real football cliche, it was a game of two halves. I thought first off we should have been out of sight. But no, fair play to West Ham. And this is the thing with West Ham. You've got a front three of Bowen, Paqueta and Kudus. That front three on paper is genuinely one of the best front threes in the league. And you create chances in the second half, and we've got the best goalkeeper in the world now, who made some top saves in that second half. Yeah, we're sort of, I mean, it sounds crazy to say it, Jez, because we're 13 clear of the top. But
I don't want to be contentious, but I'm going to ask you, we're going to be quite quick. Delighted about Mo Salah, yes or no? New contract.
Well, over the moon, the best possible news for a Liverpool fan, yeah, of course.
I think that your back line is beginning to creak. Would you, at 33, with the high-profile mistakes, be offering the same sort of big, long deal to Virgil van Dijk right now, if you were in charge of Liverpool?
100%, 1,000,000,000% yes. Easiest yes ever. He's still one of the best centre-backs in the world.
Would you be offering a long-term contract to Andy Robinson?
No, his form has dipped a lot this season, so therefore I think left-back is definitely an area will strengthen in the summer, definitely.
Tonight, live on talkSPORT, the only station to hear live sport, Bournemouth-Fulham from the Vitality Stadium, maximum at 12,000. Fulham doing really well on Marco Silva. I think he'll probably leave and get a bigger job at the end of the season. How do you see this one tonight on Talk? Are you doing it on talkSPORT? They got the A-team in.
No, I'm not doing the game on talkSPORT tonight. It'll be Sam Matterface on commentary duty. I think maybe Fulham. Bournemouth have had a really, really bad couple of weeks. They felt like it was only a few weeks ago they were not far off the top four. They're now down 10th in the table. Had a really, really bad patch of form. Fulham in decent form themselves. They won 3 of their last 5. A win for them this evening would take them just 3 points off 7th place, which would be a Europa League position. So yeah, live on talkSPORT, I'll just go for an away win tonight.
You'll go for an away win. It'll be a draw. It'll be a score draw. And just a bit of silence, join hands. What do we make of Watford's pathetic limping to the end of the season under Tom not so cleverly now?
Well, it's just death taxes and Watford just staying mid-table in the Championship, right? I mean, what are they there? Oh, they're 6 off the playoffs with 4 to go. Hey, get ready for another season in the Championship, right? Hey, at least you haven't got VAR. Take the positives.
Very good. It's been lovely. Are you here tomorrow or are you out with some young lady?
I'm not out with some young lady, no.
I don't know if you know, but Katy Perry went to space for 11 minutes. She'd have stayed there in my mind. Who would you send to space that you don't like to never come back?
Oh, that is an outrageous question, to I'm not even going to answer that question.
Sam Matterface, so you get the job, yeah? Go on.
No, Sam Matterface, I tell you what, there's no, definitely not. Who would I...
would you send your
maybe
boss?
Erling Haaland, because he just scores too many goals.
Who?
And really annoying. Erling Haaland, because he scores 50 goals.
Well, he does look like he should be in bloody Avatar. That would probably work out really well.
He's got the hair for it, hasn't he?
Thank you, my friend. Yes, Erling Haaland is, in fact, from Avatar. Right, news at 6 is on the way next, and is the Bell Oak Show next on Tour Drive?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 2 minutes past 6. We're live across the UK. This is JK on Drive, here until 7. Your involvement very welcome as ever. 0344 499 1000 is the only telephone number you need. You can text us 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We're talking about so many things. We're talking about, the British Steel saga. What is the truth? Is it Chinese sabotage, asset stripping, getting into the very infrastructure of the world, or is it incompetence in terms of the government? Well, probably both, to be fair. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about these balmy police forces. They're going anti-race courses, and you can't employ anybody who's white. Anyway, there's only one person I need to speak to on a Monday. I mean, I've spoken to the worst half. Now let's speak to the better half. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Very good evening.
Good evening. I never know how you're going to start this conversation, Jeremy. And
Yes, you
always
do, because I bet you've had a chat with Richard. I'll tell you exactly. Katy Perry went to space today, OK? Who would you send... I'd love her to say what I wanted to, but I'd never disrespect her. Who would you send to space who could never come back? Please, she says it. Please.
Oh, there's a question. There's just too many to fit into the rocket. That's the problem.
Richard wouldn't say any politician. That's very disrespectful.
Oh, no, that's a pity. Well, I'd be happy to send Ed Miliband to space, I think.
Yeah, imagine all that net zero rubbish. That would really wind him up, wouldn't it? Let's talk about British Steel, Isabel. This sort of hit on Friday. Two different opinions, OK? So we know what we know. Parliament recalled for the first time in 42 years. The government putting out this sort of rhetoric that the Chinese company that bought from Boris Johnson's government in 2019, they're culpable, the business, were basically sabotaging the furnaces, asset stripping. Benedict Spence earlier said, I disagree with that. I think the government could have done a lot more. They know this is down to net zero. When the Chinese bought this, they will not have seen energy prices or believe they would go this high. We all know that's the truth. Net zero is to blame. Luke de Pulford, who set up an interparliamentary alliance on China and talked about it, very intelligent guy about half an hour ago, saying, no, you're all missing the point. There isn't a private company in China with this money. This is at the largesse of the Chinese Communist Party, who want to infiltrate almost every part of the United Kingdom and other countries, something that Ian Duncan Smith has gone on about for years and years and years. What's your take on this, Isabel?
Well, I mean, Ian Duncan Smith is absolutely right. You know, this is just the way that the Chinese operate. And there are certain soft targets, like I was talking about this earlier with Ian Collins, our colleague, certain soft targets like small Caribbean nations with very low GDP. They're very easy to persuade to have a new airport, a new set of roads, whatever it may be, that the Chinese pay for. And then basically it's like a PFI project. This poor nation is then basically shackled with a load of debt, and the Chinese act like loan sharks effectively. But you would have thought that somewhere like the UK, we're still, sixth or seventh richest nation in the world, would actually be a little bit brighter than to fall for this. And yet we still seem to in some completely naive way, imagine that the Chinese are not doing to us what they do to everyone else, which is getting their claws into our country and into our infrastructure and using these means as a way to exert their dominance over the world. And if that sounds a little bit woo-woo conspiracy theory, it really isn't. If you look at the map of the world and where the Chinese have assets, they're effectively colonizing. It's just a modern way of doing it.
Well, listen to this. This is from Howard, who says, Jess, why are you so surprised about China and its politics? I knew over 20 years ago. The last few prime ministers and governments are traitors. I kept Huel out of a certain mobile phone network in 2002. When I left, they were in. UK eventually banned them, but ridiculously gave them until 2027 to remove it. I know how long a swap programme is. I wouldn't be surprised if they're working behind closed doors to change it back. We need to beware. It's interesting, because in the past, of course, if anybody brings up China, they talk about, the Chinese, and people go, oh, that's conspiracy theories. But there's more and more proof, it seems, that there is something behind this. Now, what was really interesting this morning was British Steel, you can absolutely lay the blame to a degree to Johnson's government, who didn't, as you say, see the problems that could arise, sold out to the Chinese. Interestingly, when Keir Starmer recalled Parliament, everybody was like, well, that's assertive, that's quite good. The question is, why didn't they do it before? They must have been aware. I don't know if you caught this morning. I'm going to play a clip. This was brilliant. The legend that is Mike Graham. The Treasury Minister, James Murray, I can only think of one word to describe this: squirming. Have a listen and a watch.
Final one. Are you absolutely confident that the raw materials will arrive in time?
Well, I'm confident we're doing everything we can to get them in there because we want to keep those blast furnaces going.
That's not the same thing. Are you confident they will arrive in time?
I said earlier, because of commercial processes that I do not want to undermine, there are limits to what I can say.
I don't know what those are. I can't understand what those would be. Are you confident that they will arrive in time?
I've explained that I'm confident we're doing everything we can to get them in there, to keep the blast furnaces going.
Well, good luck with that then.
I mean,
basically, let me answer the question. No, he's not confident, and he doesn't want to look a complete twit when it doesn't happen, and he said he was confident.
Do you think the Labour Party knew about this and should have done more sooner?
Well, every recent Prime Minister is culpable on this one.
Back to Cameron, by the way. Back to Cameron, big time.
Way back. There have been significant political figures flagging this up for many years now, saying this is going to happen, and then at the very last minute, Keir Starmer, chasing a headline, goes all theatrical and makes MPs come from all over the country where they're trying to help councils, their parties, win or hold on to council seats, makes them all trail back to Westminster on a Saturday amid a great deal of blaze of publicity and anti-important and gripping problems. The problems never needed to reach this stage in the first place.
I'm not letting you get off this. Chris in Newbury, if we sent Ed Miliband to Mars, there would still be no longer intelligent life forms on the red planet. Which of the last few prime ministers would you send to space? Who's been the worst, Isabel Oakeshott?
I think it would have to be Theresa May, actually, because although I think she's a decent person, I mean, everything started to go badly wrong when she completely mishandled the whole aftermath of the Brexit referendum. But it's so difficult to actually.
Well, I was going to say there are 6 on the capsule.
You know what? I'm gonna scrap that. I want to send David Cameron into space, never to return. I just don't like the guy. Sorry, I don't like him. He's one of these people that masquerades as a really decent guy, and actually, a lot dates to him flouncing out of number 10 after he didn't get the referendum result that he wanted, the Brexit referendum. He should have stood back from that referendum and said, I will continue whatever the outcome, and then perhaps we wouldn't be in a... I thought
about being a leader was about doing right by your people, and if your people say we want to leave something, then you initiate that, then you make that, and then Cameron makes a comeback as Foreign Secretary, which is the most bizarre thing ever. Now, let's move it to the police, because there's a couple of stories today. One, a talk exclusive that leaves me literally cold, but I'm going to read. Alison sent me a message. I'm so glad that I no longer am a police officer, Jez. I could never police the way they are told to today. I'm convinced all the country police have been told what to do about their recruitment and DEI by those above them and from government. I would like to know what that memo said. Remember that those officers on the ground are told what to do. There are many that hate what they are being told to do. I think it's really relevant. This is on the back of 2 stories today. Talk exclusive. GMP, Greater Manchester Police, they've got a positive action team, Isabel, which stands outside supermarkets, which in itself is the most bizarre thing I've ever read, targeting ethnic minority communities and collecting names regardless of whether or not they're qualified and can speak English and will be able to sit an exam because it ticks a box. This is in the same time that West Yorkshire Police, is brilliant, last week in trouble they wouldn't hire any white candidates. Today they've gone a stage further, Isabel Oakeshott. They've sent all 10,000 of their staff, including officers and administrative staff, on a 2-day cultural awareness training course focused on black culture and policing history with black communities. It's part of a black race action plan for the constabulary to create an anti-racist police service. We can't say force, apparently, that's far too aggressive, trusted by black people. Isabel Oakeshot's got that look on her face, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy the response.
Well, I've just got a little vision here of this recruitment drive outside, you know, Tesco or Sainsbury's. A really good test of whether these potential recruits are right for the job is whether they actually stopped any shoplifters. Because if they're standing outside the supermarket, there'll be an awful lot of shoplifters coming and going. And are we to imagine that this recruitment program goes on, and while they're busy trying to desperately to rope in people of non-white skin colour, they're actually ignoring the thieves coming in and out with their free things? I mean, you couldn't make this up, could you?
No, you can't. And again, it's just about priorities. We've talked about two-tier policing. The other thing today is, I mean, we just said, again, I will forever read these things. Ministers must stop appeasing jail terrorists. After a brutal attack left 3 prison officers millimetres from death, a top Tory said prison officials need to regain control from Islamist extremists allowed to rule the roost behind bars. This is the Manchester Arena bomber plotter Hassim Abedi had access to a self-cooked kitchen, hot cooking oil and the materials for makeshift weapons used in his attack. Abedi, who helped his brother suicide bomber Salman Abedi plan the Manchester atrocity, fashioned 2 20-centimetre blades from a baking tray. He hurled hot oil on the 3 officers before attacking them with blades.
I mean, what is wrong with us? When they decided to give him access to all that stuff, I don't know. I mean, but what do you do with someone like that? What you don't do is give them access to weaponry from kitchens.
What do you do with somebody like that? Solitary confinement for the rest of their life. Honestly, don't start me on this. But we can't even get it right. Listen to this. Criminals are going untagged for months after their release in the United Kingdom amid chaos in the system, and nobody can be tracked. We've got migrants coming in who can't be tracked. We've got criminals going out that can't be tracked. We're treating terrorists better than and victims are being treated worse than people who perpetrate crime. We've got a police service that's so bloody woke that you can go, oh, I'm sorry, I've got a headache. You can be let off. We're going to have a go at the victim. Honestly, every day I start this show thinking I'm not going to hyperventilate about how completely barking bloody mad the United Kingdom's going, and then it happens again. What is wrong with us, Isabel? Don't get it.
I don't get it either, Jeremy. It's really... on the one hand, if we stop being angry about this stuff, that means we've given up and we've stopped caring.
I don't want to be angry every day. I just want people to go, Ed Miliband's an idiot. Why can't the rest of the world see that?
Well, we're quite good at laughing about it on this show, because otherwise we would all just get ourselves into such a pit of despair. But each and every day come not 1, not 2, but, you know, half a dozen things that are just completely and utterly bonkers and are self-harming and are making our country the worse and making people's quality of life worse. And I don't get it. I'm with you on this one. How can it not be obvious that there is no time to send police officers on black culture awareness away days?
They're still doing that in the Premier League. They're still taking the knee. I don't believe in I hate any form of racism, including, you know what I'm going to say, my Jewish friends who suffer racism every day. I hate it. I hate any form of racism. But this is just box ticking. It doesn't answer the issue of the best person for the crime. It doesn't answer the issue of we're doing that simply to look good. And London, the worst knife crime epidemic ever seen, all across this country. Problem. Don't get it. Just don't understand it at all. Don't. I don't know who makes these decisions. I think, listen, here's another thing. You're very young. I'm very, very old. She didn't say a word.
No, I meant if only I were young. Neither of us are very old or very young.
Well, no, you're much younger than me, but I'll tell you this. I remember during the election campaign saying, if the Labour Party get in, I remember 1979 when rubbish was on the streets because every single union wanted 30%, and if Callaghan's government didn't give them, they all went on strike. Birmingham is an absolute turmoil, isn't it? Birmingham, refuse workers in Birmingham are on strike. There's 3 million bins. There's rats the size of cats. There are calls for the army experts to be called in. This is exactly what happened 46 years ago. And they will follow suit in other councils if they feel they can score money, won't they? This government, I genuinely despair. I do.
So do I. I mean, it's such a symbolic disintegration, isn't it? And we're only talking about it's less than a couple of dozen people who are on strike, and the whole system seems to have ground to a halt. And I simply don't believe that there couldn't be an emergency response here, and there couldn't have been an emergency response weeks ago. You know, if you pay people enough money, they'll do the job. And there will be people that retired or moved to other jobs that are more than capable and qualified of driving the trucks and removing the refuse.
In 79, there were green goddesses, right? And they were from the army, and they were being used as ambulances, and there were army trucks being used for refuse collection because the government was being held to ransom by the unions. What I find despicable about this government is I haven't seen hide nor hair of Starmer or Angela Rayner anywhere near Birmingham. Birmingham is a disgrace. It's Britain's second city. It's become a joke. Right, we'd like to take calls when you're here because you're much better than me. Let's go to Sussex. Anne, this is Jezza and Isabel on Drive. What you got?
Hello, Jeremy. The reason I rang you because you were saying about policing and restrictions on who they will employ now, and balancing up the races and whatever. Why do you think they wanted senior police officers all to go to university? Because once they get them into university and they program them, instead of training them on the streets as they used
to. Oh, that's so bad. But she's absolutely right, isn't she, Anne? She's just dropped off. This does beg a very interesting question. I was saying this earlier on the show. I don't want to upset her, but my daughter, my eldest daughter, one of my eldest daughters, I've got so many, she's at university, and she was telling me all sorts of stuff, and I was saying, it is all quite left-wing, and she went, yes, but that's OK. We're now talking about schools and educational facilities in this country who are teaching this rubbish.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's absolutely all through the education system, and it's quite hard to be sure you can get out of it. I mean, even private schools are not as independent as you might like them to be on this stuff. And yeah, I mean, where are the safe spaces for children not to be indoctrinated?
Quite frightening. It's always a pleasure, never a chore. At least you were brave enough to say who you'd send to space. Do you know what Richard Tice said? I'd send you, Jezza, and happily be sent the invoice for it.
That was a bit harsh.
I know, it was a bit harsh. Yeah, and we all know he wouldn't pay the invoice because we know what he's like. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, hold on, don't go anywhere. She's back. Anne's back. Anne, hello, Isabel and I, you're back. Talk.
Oh, hello, Jeremy. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Yes, I was really saying, I don't know if you heard, about the fact that senior police officers all have to go to university. And then what?
Right, I give up. Don't worry about it, Anne. Thank you very much indeed. Not your fault. That's the way it happens. Isabel, thank you very much indeed. 6:20. We are here until 7 o'clock. If you want to be part of this attempt at a drive time show, 0344 499 1000 will get you through. You can also send a WhatsApp voice note on that. You can text 87222. You might want to talk about British SEAL, two-tier policing. Or you might just want to text and say, do you know who I'd send to space? Katy Perry went earlier. Bothered? Not really. Who would you send? Who do you not want to come back to Earth? You can name me if you want. Back in 3.
when atrocities of this scale, I mean, imagine like the appalling Manchester Arena attack times hundreds, that when that happens, so many people in our society are not on the side of the victims, but are on the side of the death cult, are chanting support for Hamas and Hezbollah on Britain's streets. Why within days were hundreds of thousands of our fellow Brits supporting the people who were the rapists, the jihadists, the beheaders?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. Kev is here. The legend that is Kev O'Sullivan is here from 7 o'clock tonight. An unmissable watch, an unmissable listen. And he actually doesn't want to be on air because he wants to watch Fulham against Bournemouth, but he's not going to. 0344 499 1000 if you want to be on ahead of 7 o'clock. Petra here from 10 and the legend that is Mike Graham back with Morning Glory, the only way to wake up. Such a fantastic show again this morning. Jez, I retired from the police after 25 years of service 4 years ago. Forces were doing these 2 days race training stuff 20 years ago. They were a waste of time then and will be now. Kev's in Southampton. Hello, Kev. He says, are you aware that David Lammy is letting China build a headquarters in central London? Yeah, we are, know that. Yeah, Karen, we're mad. Karen Grace, Karen in Kent, I think we should send Sir Lindsay Hoyle to space. He loves a great trip on the British taxpayer. I wonder if you would be so keen to repeat that one. That's brilliant. Mick even, I can't even read. The bubble is about to burst, Jez, for the police, the council and social services chiefs who failed to investigate the rape gangs. Maggie Oliver is on a mission and she will succeed. This country needs to grow a backbone and stop what's going on and get stronger. Paul Jones, good afternoon. You have the right to remain silent. And did you know enslaved Africans were forcibly transported on ships from the west coast of Africa to the Americas? Probably. Jean. No, I'm not. Hi, Jean. Have I changed my name? Hi, Jean. Hi, this is Drive Time with Jean Kyle. Colin in Doncaster. I had a crash there once. I was a prison officer for 15 years after leaving the RAF. I got sick to death of being one of only 2 officers running a wing of 100 inmates. Sometimes I was on my own. Thank you, Colin. Tom from Yorkshire. I'd send the king to space. Right? Bizarre. Hopefully then he will get a better view of what is happening to his country and his people and then be compelled to do something about it. We, his subjects, need him. Our magnificent previous monarch was the bedrock of our society. May she rest in peace, Mr. Speaker. Let's go to London. Georgina, you're on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, that was a fabulous Winston Churchill impression. I'm very impressed.
We will fight them on the beaches, but my God, men, we will fight them. I can also do Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, don't.
What?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I think it's time I return to public life. Crack on.
Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed your weekend. No, stop it. I hope you enjoyed your weekend of golf.
Feather beans and a nice Chianti.
Right, can I speak now, please?
Yes, crack on. What's keeping you, woman?
Right, well, I was going to say, I hope you enjoyed your weekend of golf. I had to endure a whole weekend with my husband, who's the same name as you, and my son, who's the same name as your son, the same age, and was born in the same month.
Right, hold on a second. Your husband's called Jeremy?
Yes.
Your son is called Henry?
Yes, born in March.
How old is he?
16.
Jeez. I hope I don't get you confused with my wife. But are you the one that cooks nice things?
I am the one that cooks every day. Yes,
she does this to me. She does this to me regularly now to wind me up. What are Jeremy and Henry having for dinner tonight?
Well, Henry has a different thing from his daddy because he doesn't like eating the same as daddy. Jez had cod with beer batter and homemade chipped potatoes, and he wanted beans, so that's what he had. And
don't get too near to his bum later, what?
And little heart had, he likes chicken goujon, so I did those again for him because he likes those. And he likes spaghetti, noodles, and he likes lots of sauce, and he likes fish fingers.
I hope you're listening, Mrs. Kyle. You need to step it up a bit, to be honest. Georgina's on the rails. Georgina, what's wound you up today, love?
Right, what's really wound me up is the fact that we are paying for this filth, these baby rapists, these Pakistani baby rapists. I think, yes, I do agree that people are innocent till they are proven guilty. So I agree with the payment for the solicitor. But once they are found guilty, Jez, I think that they should have all their assets given to or taken by the government, which is good for this government because they take everything anyway. And I feel also if they haven't got any assets to reimburse the taxpayer for what they've been spent out, I think they should have to work in prison every day until the debt is paid.
This is shocking news today, that legal aid to people being accused of paedophilia, £611,000. Legal aid to people who were accused and then found guilty, I believe, of being part of these we call them rape gangs on Talk because we're not frightened to say that. They're not grooming gangs. And it begged the question, Georgina's got involved with that. Why are we giving free? Of course, you should have the right to be represented, but as she's making the point, we need to somehow get that money back. We need to somehow say, sorry, we're not as taxpayers paying for you to find out where you stand legally when it's been proven in a court of law that you've abused young children. Georgina, love to have you on. Thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. Here's a man who I think is the last time we spoke to him. Had he been for a swim? Is that him? No. Andrew Allison, Head of Campaigns at Popular Conservatism. Very good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. I'm well. Are you?
Ah, no, it's not you. The other one had hair. How are you?
Well, yeah, I haven't had hair for a very long time.
Well, it's very nice to have you on the show. Really, really appreciate it. Good weekend. Were you a Rory McIlroy fan or are you not a golfer?
Yes, I watched it last night. It was, thrills and spills, rollercoaster ride, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. Do you play golf?
No, I'm useless at playing golf, but I do enjoy watching it.
Ryan played 9 holes, but he fell down 3 of them. Right, just a little joke there. Andrew, when we spoke before, we were both getting increasingly wound up by what seems to be the woke madness. I'm going to throw another story before we go back to the police. NHS trusts have been prioritising black and ethnic minority applicants on interview shortlists in line with NHS England guidance. Official documents recommend recruiters use the Rooney Rule. What's that? Be a crap football manager and get fired. A policy from American football saying those of ethnic minorities must be shortlisted for interviews if they apply. The reason I wanted to read this story to you was, and again without giving away too much, my best friend in the world's partner's daughter's boyfriend is 22, just come out of university with an honours degree in economics, good university, wants to work in London, wants to get into the finance industry. 57 applications and not one interview. So he decided a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, to just change a couple of things about what he was putting. So he put non-binary or asexual, and he put 3 interviews in 5 minutes. And you're smiling. It's an utter disgrace, man.
I'm smiling
how
because
does this work? It's just dreadful.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I'm just not surprised because this is exactly how things are going. I think I've said before to you, Jeremy, that the public sector and large corporations in particular are wedded to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're interested in ticking boxes. And this is what this particular story is about. And the NHS not recruiting basically white people. I mean, that's what that's maybe not overtly not recruiting them, but they're certainly prioritising people from different ethnic backgrounds is racism in itself, isn't it? I mean, what else could you describe it as?
It's reverse racism, right? It's reverse racism. And then you've got these 2 stories of the police today. One to Talk exclusive GMP. They've got a special positive action team who basically, and this is almost racist the way they say this. We're going to stand outside supermarkets because that's where ethnic minorities all hang around. When I read this, I thought, sorry, hold on a second, how racist does that sound? But we're going to grab people who either can't speak English or don't understand English law, We're just going to grab their names and get them to enrol and get them to join, because that apparently, Greater Manchester Police Chief Constable Stephen Watson said, positive action here extends to proactively reaching out to groups and encouraging them to join, but we have single windows. Everybody's entitled to apply at the same time. They're all put through the same process. We choose the best people. No, you don't. You patently don't, because your system is saying that you'll do it just for the sake of it. It got... One particular trip, it got 40 names in a day. The bosses would say great. GMP would then hold a weekend workshop at their headquarters exclusively for ethnic minority applicants to get them ready to get the jobs. Then we had West Yorkshire Police last week accused of also refusing to recruit white people. They've gone a stage further today, Andrew. They've sent all 10,000 of their officers/administrative staff, I have to read this because it's so barky mad, on a 2-day cultural awareness training course focused on black culture and policing's history with black communities. It's part of a race action plan by West Yorkshire Constabulary to create an anti-racist police service, can't say force, it's too dangerous, trusted by black people. Now, I find any form of racism abhorrent, but are we not getting to the point where we are, as you quite rightly say, going so far the other way that it could actually be perceived to be anti-white in many instances?
Well, yes. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I'm surprised at Stephen Watson as well. I was on a panel with him at the Conservative Party conference a couple of years ago, and I was rather impressed with him. And he had the reputation of being the anti-woke chief constable. So it's actually surprised me that he's even defending this. But the police there in Greater Manchester appear not to be recruiting on merit, most certainly not recruiting on merit, but they don't seem to be even interested in whether the people they're potentially recruiting can even do the job.
I know.
And that is even more dangerous, considering that they're supposed to be protecting the public.
And also now, specifically at a time where, I'm not talking about social unrest, I'm talking about such high numbers of crimes that are not even investigated, let alone being sold. And all of that just leaves a terrible, nasty taste in the mouth, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. And this thing that's going on in West Yorkshire, where they put a freeze on the recruitment of white people, you can see how they've got there, though, Jeremy, because as I said at the beginning, they're interested in this DEI nonsense. They're trying to tick boxes. Despite the fact that the country is 82% white, that is just a fact.
What do you say to people who would say, you and I saying this is unfair and racist to black people?
Well, it's not, because the country is 82% white, so the vast majority of police officers are going to be white. That's just a fact of life. I'm not saying that we don't want people from different ethnic minorities in the police. I think it's a perfectly good idea. But the idea that you just try to reverse engineer it by saying, right, white people, you cannot become a police officer at the moment, and we are only going to prioritise people from a BME background, is just bonkers. You get the right people for the job, be it man, woman, gay, straight, black, Asian, whatever it happens to be. Just get the right people for the job who can actually protect the public.
Do you think, I mean, you started by saying that this government and so many more are wedded to the DEI sort of madness, and we saw Trump at his inauguration say many things. One was that's gone, wokeness is gone, there's two genders or whatever. There will be many people. In fact, interestingly, it seems that this country seems to be a centre for this woke madness. This ideology that seeps through both education, seemingly the public services, almost every part of our lives. Do you think it's on the turn, or do you think that you and I, the people associated with this station, almost every person I know, must be mad, are just a minority? Or do you think that people are realising that this is, with the greatest of respect, rubbish? Net zero, rubbish. Wokeness, rubbish. DEI, rubbish. It should be about the best person for the job, and that's what they need to sort out.
I'm optimistic, Jeremy. I genuinely do believe that this is on the turn. The vast majority of people in this country have not really voted for the net zero madness that is creating much higher energy bills. And we look at British Steel, the fact that energy costs 4 times more in this country than it does in the United States is a direct result of the regulations and the carbon net zero madness that surround us. they're not in favour of all these different woke policies. They're not in favour of discriminating against white people, and nor are they in favour of discriminating against black people or people from different ethnic backgrounds. I think we're a pretty, non-racist country, and people are sick and tired of this, and the politicians are starting to wake up. I mean, what we need to do, if at all possible, is to reset the political clock back to the 30th of April 1997, the day before Tony Blair got his landslide election victory.
It's not
and we
going to
need to
happen,
get
that, is it?
rid of so many of this damaging new Labour legislation that brought all of this in.
Final question for you on the back of that. Don't shirk the answer. Today, Katy Perry went to space. Bothered? No, waste of money. But who do you dislike that intensely that you would send to space and they could never come back? Politically, yes. Anybody that we know. Are you brave enough?
I think for me, it's with all the new Labour. With all the Labour lot, it's difficult. But I think David Lammy would be the person I want to send up in space and never come back again.
Yeah, the problem is how much would the bill be for him to munch through whatever food on the way there? Listen, you're great. Thanks for coming on. Andrew Allison, Head of Campaigns of Popular Conservatism, almost 20 minutes to 7 o'clock. Kev here at 7. You want to be on ahead of that? 0344 499 1000. We're coming back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
To promote it anymore, you heard it there. Give it a listen. It's amazing. If you're a regular, you know exactly what I mean. If you haven't listened to Mike Graham's Morning Glory, where the blimmin' hell have you been the last year? It's absolutely fantastic. And back on air tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, exclusive to the home of free speech and common sense with Talk. It's 19 minutes to 7 o'clock. Kenny from Edinburgh. Hi, Jez. Ryan played 9 holes, but he fell down 3 of them. Jez, stop trying to be funny because you're not. A fart in a spacesuit, Jeremy Kyle. 2 things that aren't funny. Stick to what you're good at, Jezza. A moany old git that loves to moan a lot. That's nice, isn't it? I would definitely send... I don't care. I would definitely send Starmer into outer space, Jezza, but strap him to the outside of the rocket. After all, he is made of Teflon. Yes, Mary from Devon. Jez, I would send you to space, but only because it'd save you from blowing a gasket and having a meltdown on national television. Please try and chill out, Jez. Your country needs you. I hope this will help. But give yourself a wee, tiny high five from me and the people in Scotland. Lovely. Jez, I thought that in space no one could hear your scream. That's just been disproved, absolutely. Good afternoon, Jez. You said start with the message by saying Watford will be in the Championship and a crap, so I have. With this 2-tier policing, it just shows how out of touch our so-called elite are. Those of us who live in their diversity dream of finding it very hard watching this country fall apart. Here's a metaphor that sums it up. Those travelling in 3rd class on the Titanic knew it was sinking way before those in 1st class sipping their champagne and congratulate themselves, and what a wonderful job they've done until it was too late. I hope one day Peter Bleksley will be head of the police force in the UK. We need him. Trevor, a massive Watford supporter. There are two of you. 0344 499 1000. Margaret in Birmingham thinks Rory McIlroy should be knighted. And Andrew Warrington. Now, I don't know, is he in Warrington? Is he called Andrew Warrington? I've no idea. If you need an example of seeing what box ticking does, instead of hiring the best for the job, Kyle, look no further than the Labour cabinet. Oh, yeah, true. 0344 499 1000. I'll do this quick story about pubs. Alistair Kerr is the spokesperson for Campaign for Pubs. Alistair, how are you?
Hello, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on again.
Lovely. Ryan always likes to do a story on pubs because he has an issue. He goes, he's always in the pub. He's always in the pub, and he needs to go to their left. This is really interesting, actually. When the budget, interesting, it's painful for your business. When the October budget came out, of course, Labour got elected by saying we're going to create growth. Growth is what we growth. But then we're going to make it almost virtually bloody impossible for any small or medium-sized business, certainly in this industry and other industries, to survive. And then we're going to survive even. We're going to raise costs and raise tax. Then we're going to bring a workers' rights charter. You know, I've got a headache, or I'll pay you for 6 months for doing nothing. And it's literally true to say, is it not, that because of Rachel Reeves' taxes, the pubs are being forced to shut their doors early as you scramble for cost. There was one story of a guy, Brian Whitting, the owner of several pubs in the rural southeast, said he started to close at 9 p.m. because he's hit with an almost £200,000 increase in extra annual costs. How bad is it for the business?
Well, it's not a pretty picture at the moment. You've hit the nail right on the head. Rachel Reeves has hit small businesses across the board, including pubs, with a £25 billion tax levy. And when you're lowering national insurance contributions and raising minimum wage, it's very important to make this point clear. It isn't government that generates jobs, it's businesses. We as publicans and pub users, we are small business owners, we support our communities, and we are being hit not just by this increase and raising minimum wage, but we've got VAT bills, we've got the cost of energy. And it's not surprising that you're seeing pubs that want to close early to kind of save costs, and not just on wages and whatever else, but just to keep going.
How does somebody like Reeves, I mean, somebody describe the tax situation for your sort of business and the importance, the problems that you're now facing, as worse than COVID for the pub sector. How does Rachel Reeves or this government expect growth to work if businesses, pub businesses, the entertainment sector, all these small, medium businesses are being literally castigated in terms of finances? Because, as you quite rightly said, they will close early, they won't be able to afford staff, people won't be able to afford anyway to go out and eat, and anybody that's a successful business will sell the business and just leave these shores. I don't understand it as a theory.
No, absolutely, and it proves the ultimate theory that whatever political stripe you are, I mean, in some cases it is worse than COVID. At least that administration did actually give some support to the industry and did actually listen to our concerns to a degree. When we have been trying to talk to the Chancellor and talk to many Labour MPs and government, and we've said, look, what would really help the industry is a VAT relief. And basically what that would do is make more people have more disposable income, more boost the nighttime economy. We've been met with disdain. And you can't build growth on nothing. You cannot build economic security on mass unemployment, mass redundancies, mass business closures. So it's nonsensical from my point of view, and from many common sense people.
When you say, completely agree with you, that's nonsensical. When you say, it's met with disdain, how does any government expect growth to happen if they're not encouraging growth at ground root level? Because presumably what that does, that's how business works, isn't it? That's how you create jobs and productivity, surely.
Well, absolutely. And as I said earlier, Jeremy, the government of this political administration and all political administrations need to understand it isn't governments that create jobs, it's businesses. And at the moment, pubs have been hit with. We went through the whole debacle of being blamed for COVID, have the most harsh trading restrictions imposed on pubs and restaurants and hospitality sector, and now we have nothing. We're barely surviving. We're not just an industry on our knees. We've been amputated at the knees and left to bleed out.
It's interesting what you said as well about, which I thought was very interesting. I mean, we talked about COVID and talked about what people gave and all that, but you talked about energy prices, and people have told me in all sorts of small businesses that, the NI cut's dreadful, the workers' right thing's dreadful, all those sorts of things. But actually the cost of, I mean, it's not your business, but I was telling the story the other day of a dry cleaning business in Windsor that I used to use, and he was telling me he had to close. His energy bill prices went up by £18,000 just a shop, and he said, it's not sustainable. I can't sustain it anymore. I just can't do it, and so I closed the business. And I don't, everybody knows what I think about the energy things. What's more dangerous to the pub sector? Is it this government's taxes? Is it net zero and what that means? What is the most difficult part?
I think it's more the government's lack of understanding and lack of compassion and lack of listening to people who actually do work in the trade. I mean, we saw last week that the Chancellor, the Deputy Prime Minister, was in that nightclub with the Mayor of London saying, isn't it great that we've let them open later? Well, no, because they've still got to extend their costs. The energy bills are still ongoing. Pubs, when we close the doors at the end of the night, the chillers are still on, the fridges are still on. There's still energy bills going on. There's still a load of cost and crisis. What we need is a government minister to come along and say, oh, I do understand. I want to work with you. Let me know what I can do. Instead of this fairy tale, la-di-da kind of, oh, well, we were left with such a mess and now we've got to blame everybody else for it.
Do you think it's going to get better or worse for your sector of business, my friend?
Well, at the moment, if the government continues its course, I can't see it getting any better. But as you know, Jeremy, and I know, pubs are fighters. This hospitality sector is a fighter. We'll continue to do what we do because we are a people-facing industry, and all I urge is that people continue to support their pubs, restaurants, hotels. Keep on supporting us. Keep us open and keep us viable.
Good man. Really good to have you on, Alistair. Thank you so much indeed. Pointing out how difficult it is for the pub sector. Somebody saying today that the tax situation for the pub industry is worse than COVID. Many now genuinely having to close early, shut their kitchens, maybe just have kitchens on till 6, 7 o'clock at night, because what happened in COVID, what happened with that budget in October was so many of them were given such a hard time, and it really has impacted. But it's energy bills. It's always, you can talk about NI, talk about workers' rights. Energy, this net zero madness is at the absolute forefront of so much of this. 0344 499 1000, 10 to 7.
Members of a grooming gang who preyed on teenage girls, they got £611,000 in legal aid. This is the Rotherham monsters, as they call them. This comes days after Labour went back on the abuse inquiry promises. Ringleader Mohammed Imran Ali Akhtar, 43, who was sentenced to 23 years in jail, got $143,000 in legal aid. His total doesn't include costs for a separate trial last year where he got a 12-year term for raping a girl of 13 after plying her with booze and drugs.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 7 minutes to 7. Jerry's off to get me a cup of tea in case you forget. 0344 499 1000. Very quickly, Nick is in Leicester. Nick, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Jeremy. How are you?
Not too bad for a balding 60-year-old has-been. How are you?
No, you're a young man. I'm 64. You're a young man. Don't say
Young
that.
man! Right, crack on. I ain't got too much time. What you got, kiddo?
No worries, mate. I was listening to your commentary on diversity.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why we've got this issue with diversity. Jeremy, I'm married to, and I've been married for what, 20 years, to a black African lady.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a child together, and we don't see all this ridiculous propaganda that the media is spinning about diversity. Yes, we're different. Of course we're different. She's got a different culture to me, and vice versa. But we work with it, and you know, we're very much in love, and we don't have a problem. I don't understand why the rest of the world has a problem with it.
Do you know what? I completely agree with you. I think the world gets stuck up on stuff that is at best irrelevant. But there is no doubt that if you step away from the personal side to this, and if you're brave enough to have these conversations, not you, not me, the world in general,
sure,
that any sort of job should be about the best person for that job. And whilst I completely acknowledge, and I do want to say this, that, you know, maybe in the past there has been discrimination, you've now gone the other way. Audiences for television shows, recruitment to the police, the NHS, I can give you reams of examples. And you could argue, and I hate it, that it's now anti-other group. The whole thing's rubbish, like you say. We should be employing the best people and treating everybody the same.
Jeremy, she gets embarrassed. She's like, why are these people, pushing the coloured minority?
Yeah.
And, she's embarrassed about it.
I think it's an ideology. I think that people in politics or these sorts of people feel that they're doing, I don't know, they're doing people a service. I'm saying they're doing them a disservice. I really do think they're doing them a disservice, because you could look at the argument and say, what's the only giving that person a job because of the colour of their skin or their religion? That's ridiculous. They want to get the job because they're the best person for the bloody job. That's the whole point, isn't it?
That's just it. But obviously you and me, we can see that at our age. But obviously the younger generation, what did they call them? Gen Z or Z or X or whatever they call them.
Lazy gits, I call them, yeah.
Yeah, lazy gits is about right.
Brilliant. You're a good man. Listen, love to your wife. Thank you very much indeed for calling. Nick is in Leicester. Final call of the day. Philip is a new caller. He's in Bridgend, is it? We've only got 1 minute, is it? What you got? What's happening? Whose coat is that at in the middle of the dance floor?
Well, basically, Jez, great show, by the way.
Thank you.
Going back to your earlier conversation about small businesses, we have just had a business rates rise of £3,000 a year. And there's just 5 of us in the company. And basically, it's just unsustainable.
This is this is a country, Wales, where you've had Labour for 20 years.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, everybody.
When you talk about growth, which this government and this country talk about growth. Growth, to me, comes from encouraging things to grow. I mean, I'm just going to sound like I'm turn into bloody gardening expert. You know, you make things grow by watering them. You make things grow by encouraging them and making the conditions better for them to grow. If you say to any sort of small or medium-sized business, God, it's going to cost you more to pay people, you're going to have to basically employ people that are no good at the job. They can all complain and have 6 months off. We're going to make it almost impossible with red tape to get anything done. People are going to go, oh, why would I set up a business, or why would I sustain a business? Because it's too bloody difficult and I won't make any money.
Yeah, we've been going 15 years, and this is by far the most difficult year so far.
Worse than COVID?
Oh, well, absolutely. We had support in COVID. We got nothing at the moment.
Listen, it's really good to have you on from Wales. I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you for making it talk. Keep it here. Philip, new caller in Bridgend, 0344. Follow 91000 is not for me because it's a couple of minutes to 7 and he walks in, a man who's utterly convinced tonight, Kev O'Sullivan, that Fulham will beat Bournemouth.
Of course they will. Of course they will.
And Kev O'Sullivan, who will freely admit that he's finally watched my ITV Life Stories programme over the weekend. Lying git. Look at his face.
There was the Masters on.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, of course I did.
Mate.
Stunning last round.
You know 13, when he put it in the water from 80 yards, he said, I watched an interview and I've played with him before, he said, my hands, I just, honestly, what he's done is incredible.
Yeah, because that 13th, when he put it, that was just a miss hit. And people like Rory McIlroy don't often miss hit the ball.
If I'd known you were up, I'd have called you. I didn't think anybody else liked golf. Right, what you got? What's happening?
He was nervous from the start to the finish, as I am tonight.
Are you?
Mate, no, we're going to talk to two-tier policing. How dare